Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. I am the Aquaman in Marvel, the check-in system is bound. Chapter 1. In the vast sea, a luxury cruise ship rides the wind and waves, sailing fast on the sea. On the deck at the top of the cruise ship, with a flash of light, a young Asian man appeared on the deck. Am I time traveling? Looking at the cruise ship, the endless sea and the two foreigners at the bow, Han Xiaoqing couldn't think of the second possibility. He felt very strange. He just went downstairs to buy a bag of salt, he opened the door and landed here, the time travel was too casual. But having said that, the two foreigners and the scene felt a little familiar. But the distance is far away, and Han Xiaoqing, who has more than 400 degrees of myopia, doesn't wear glasses, so he can't see the facial features of the two clearly. He can only roughly tell from the figure and the long skirt that it should be a man and a woman. The wind was strong at sea and the distance was far away. Han Xiaoqing couldn't hear what the two were saying at all, but found that their bodies began to touch. The man took the woman's hand and asked her to stand in front of the railing. Arm, as if to take off in place. Lovers get married, and I've seen it with my own eyes. I'm Han Xiaoqing, bring yourself salt. No, this ship. Titanic. Yeah, Han Xiaoqing realized that he seemed to have traveled to the world of the Titanic, the ship that claimed to be unsinkable, but hit an iceberg and sank on its first voyage. It's fine to eat dog food just after transmigrating. If it doesn't work out, he will have to kill him. Bah, to kill him. Briefly recalling the plot of Titanic, Han Xiaoqing remembered that Rusi and Xiao Lizzie showed their affection in the sunset, and 6 hours later, the Titanic sank. A typical show of affection, but a quick death. Han Xiaoqing has no interest in the poignant story of the affair between the two. What he is thinking about now is how to save himself. To tell the captain that the Titanic will hit an iceberg and sink. It is estimated that the other party will treat it as a neuropathy. What's more, he came from a time travel and belonged to a black family. He had no money or identity to find the captain. He would probably be arrested as a spy before he saw the captain's face. You must know that in this era, Chinese people are discriminated against. The Titanic was adapted from real people and real events. At that time, there were a few Chinese laborers on board who managed to survive, but they could be targeted and slandered, and their lives were extremely difficult. If he came forward, the only end would be to be imprisoned in a small dark room for interrogation. And there is only one consequence of being caught, that is to sink to the bottom of the sea with the Titanic to feed the fish. How to do? Han Xiaoqing scratched her head anxiously, and finally set her sights on the lifeboat. If you hid in the lifeboat in advance, you should have a high chance of surviving. As for running to the lifeboat to escape now, it is not realistic. The first is that the chances of exposure are too great. Second, there is no food. In the vast sea, Han Xiaoqing lacks survival experience. It is estimated that even if he can get on a lifeboat, he will not survive for long. Now his position is considered safe. Han Xiaoqing thought over and over again, and prepared to sneak into the lifeboat at night when there were few people. As for the people on the cruise ship, at most they can leave some messages to remind them that there is only so much he can do with his current abilities. Having said that, other people have golden fingers in time travel. No matter how bad they can also have a good father or grandfather. How come there is no response when I come here? Han Xiaoqing was also at a loss as to how to cross over here, and he had no idea how to go back. How to live in the future is also a problem. Time passed little by little, and Rusi and Xiaolizi had already returned to the cabin to create art. The style of painting may be a little green. Let's mourn for Rusi's fiancé for 3 seconds. The scenery in the boat is very good, but Han Xiaoqing can only blow the cold sea breeze on the top of the boat. The cool breeze gently blows into my skirt, and I can't hear the sound in summer. The days pass by in a hurry, which makes me feel a lot of emotions. I miss the colorful scene. Han Xiaoqing, who was thinking wildly, suddenly popped up the lyrics of the occasion in his mind, and couldn't help feeling more desolate in his heart, so he really wanted to write a big word, miserable, on the deck. It was getting late, the temperature began to drop. The lights on the Titanic were turned on, and the number of people on the deck gradually decreased. Han Xiaoqing, who was wearing a thin dress, shivered a little from the cold. Carefully climbing down to the top of the boat along the railing, he took a suitcase by hand, and took a thick piece of clothing from it to wear on his body. Then he went to the direction of the lifeboat with hunger. While passing by the aisle, I found a bucket of paint and brushes. Seeing no one around, Han Xiaoqing frantically brushed his books and wrote the information that the Titanic would hit an iceberg on the deck in English. As for whether anyone will see it, will you take it seriously after seeing it? And act accordingly. Han Xiaoqing couldn't care less about it. After diving into the lifeboat, Han Xiaoqing tied the rope around his waist with the boat, tied a slipknot, and then covered it with canvas. He did what he had to do, and left the rest to his fate. After a while, a patrolling crew found the message left by Han Xiaoqing and told Captain Smith about it. Hearing the words, the deputy also reminded, "Captain, we did receive an iceberg alert before, do you want to change the course? Don't worry about it, speed up, I have 26 years of age, my judgment can't be wrong." Smith has full confidence in his own experience. He is confident that he can see an iceberg that is big enough to sink a ship in advance and turn around in time. Wipe off the paint and find that alarmist little mouse, and don't disturb the guests on board. Having said this, Captain Smith resumed his work. The captain opened his mouth, and the crew broke their legs. Based on just one sentence, other information is useless. The crew members are looking for suspicious persons like chickens without a head. It is strange that they can find them in a short time. Evading a perfunctory search, Han Xiaoqing quietly curled up on the lifeboat, waiting. It would be best if the captain turned his prodigal son back in time, but at worst, he would be caught, at least the possibility of surviving was still very high. As for the others, it is useless to think about it. It's a pity that things backfired. The captain insisted on his own opinion and accelerated forward instead, with the momentum of not turning back without hitting the south wall. After a while, Han Xiaoqing heard the ringing of the alarm bell. Is it still inevitable? Knowing the result, Han Xiaoqing tightly grasped the handle of the lifeboat with both hands. The crew on the ship had seen the iceberg, and the alarm bells rang. There's an iceberg right in front of you. Quick, full starboard. Turn the rudder fast and turn hard. Close the damper. Steady. Now, start reversing the engines. The captain went into battle himself, but the Titanic had a large rudder and a small rudder. When he realized it, he couldn't turn it around in time. In addition, it was impossible to stop in time now that it was fully powered up before. It's about to hit. Boom. The hull collided with the iceberg, and the Titanic shook violently. The right side of the hull seemed to have hit some hard material, and it was directly broken. Ang! A melodious roar resounded in the sea, with waves of ripples, and a huge orchid figure passed by the edge of the ship. At the same time, the Titanic's hull began to tilt, and a large amount of seawater poured into the cabin. Han Xiaoqing swayed from side to side in the lifeboat. If he hadn't held on tightly and tied the rope, he might have been thrown out. Fortunately, his position was on the left side of the hull, and he did not collide with the iceberg. The captain promptly ordered the closure of the waterproof gate of the cabin, temporarily stabilizing the hull, but the drainage was insufficient, and it was only a matter of time before the overall sinking of the hull. After stabilizing, Han Xiaoqing lifted the canvas, decisively and quickly untied the rope and lowered the lifeboat to escape. As for the others, Han Xiaoqing's mud bodhisattva crossed the river, and he couldn't protect himself, so he couldn't care less. Ang! The deep and melodious voice sounded again, and this time Han Xiaoqing heard it clearly. Looking at the surface of the sea, I found a strange blue light appeared in the sea, and it was rapidly approaching the Titanic. A huge bubble formed on the water surface, and when the bubble burst, rows of staggered huge fin-shaped objects appeared in Han Xiaoqing's sight. Godzilla, did you make a mistake? He never imagined that it would be nonsense to travel to the Titanic. Godzilla can still be seen on the Titanic. What kind of world is this? Godzilla doesn't care what human beings think. He used to push the iceberg to enjoy the coolness, but he never thought that the ice in his hand would be smashed into pieces for no reason. If he doesn't avenge this revenge, how can he mess around in the monster world in the future? Boom! Godzilla's dorsal fin hit the side of the Titanic, like a sharp knife directly tearing a huge gap in the hull. The violent shock caused Han Xiaoqing to fall from the lifeboat. Because there was a rope tied around his waist, Han Xiaoqing was thrown into the air. Seeing that a broken steel plate was about to hit him, he had to untie the rope and fell into the icy sea. Gululu. Being in the middle of the ocean, it was difficult for Han Xiaoqing to tell the direction, so he had to go upstream. At this moment, he saw a blue light appearing below, and then, Godzilla's big flat head gradually enlarged in his field of vision. Godzilla doesn't pay attention to such a small thing like human beings, and rises from the sea on his own. Han Xiaoqing stubbornly pulled on the gap on Godzilla's flat head, and after coming out of the water, he spit out a few mouthfuls of seawater and gasped for breath. At this moment, Han Xiaoqing's heart was beating wildly, and he didn't know what to do. Standing on top of Godzilla is a feat, but what next? The appearance of Godzilla completely exceeded his expectations. Although in the movie, Godzilla is the party of justice, but Godzilla's justice is standing on the balance point of the Earth. He is the guardian of the Earth's ecological balance. In the eyes of Godzilla, humans are like humans viewing ants. Who cares about the life and death of an ant? Just when Han Xiaoqing was at a loss, a mechanical sound suddenly came from his mind. Ding! The check-in system is bound. Ding! The host is currently on top of Godzilla and meets the check-in conditions. Do you want to check in? Hearing the sudden voice, Han Xiaoqing's heart skipped a beat, and he reacted quickly. This is the cheat sheet. Han Xiaoqing had read a lot of time travel novels before, and after going to work, he would take time to read them during breaks to relax his mind. As for the system, cheats still know something about it. In a situation like this, anything is better than nothing. When he came back to his senses, Han Xiaoqing was like a drowning man grabbing a life-saving straw, and hurriedly said, "Punch in." Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Neptune Arthur's super physique, telepathy and Neptune's trident. Do you want to receive it? There is a line of comments below the prompt. Super physique. As a hybrid of an Atlantean queen and a human, Neptune Arthur not only has a special physique at least 20 to 50 times that of an Atlantean, but also has the ability to survive on land for a long time ability. Telepathy. You can communicate with the ocean and the creatures in the ocean and control it. Neptune's trident. A weapon passed down from generation to generation by the king of Atlantis. It was cast by the first king of Atlanta with enchanted end metal. It is enough to pierce the skin of new gods and can be manipulated and transformed in various forms. Energy, such as launching energy bombs or generating energy shields to resist magic, etc. Looking at the series of information in front of him, Han Xiaoqing was overjoyed. Neptune's abilities are extremely powerful, and each item is enough to make people jealous. Receive. The moment Han Xiaoqing chose to receive it, he felt a majestic energy pouring into his body from the void. In an instant, his strength, physique, and induction were all greatly improved. At the same time, a 5-bladed trident with a golden halo appeared out of nowhere in Han Xiaoqing's hand. At this moment, Han Xiaoqing gained the power of Neptune, and the muscles on his body bulged accordingly, full of explosive power. Holding the Neptune trident, Han Xiaoqing slowly opened his eyes, with a golden light shining in his eyes, as if with a hint of divinity. This feeling is very strange. Standing on top of Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing holds a trident, as if he is the master of this sea. At the same time, Godzilla finally noticed the little dot above his head, and felt a hint of danger from the other party. It's like walking alone on the road and an ant falls on the head. If you don't pay attention, you naturally don't take it to heart. But if a poisonous spider appeared on the head, it would be a different matter. With the physique and equipment of Aquaman, Han Xiaoqing has become a strong man, and the Neptune trident in his hand is enough to pierce Godzilla's skin and cause damage to him. Feeling threatened, Godzilla was not used to Han Xiaoqing, so he raised his paw and slapped it on the forehead. This simple action, made by Godzilla, is fatal to most living organisms. Don't look at Godzilla in the movie with short hands, but in fact Godzilla's front paws are at least 30 meters away, and his head is bent a little, so he can still shoot the top of his head. Before Han Xiaoqing had time to ask about the status of the check-in system, he adapted to his increased strength and quickly jumped off Godzilla's head and landed on Godzilla's shoulders. Regardless of Godzilla's huge size, with a height of nearly 100 meters, his movements are not slow at all. It takes less than a second for the giant claws to lift up to land on the head. Fortunately, Han Xiaoqing's physique has been greatly improved, so he narrowly escaped from the gap between Godzilla's claws. Brother, don't do it, I'm not your enemy. Standing firm, Han Xiaoqing immediately used the ability of telepathy to communicate with Godzilla. Although Godzilla is a monster, he has wisdom beyond ordinary people. It's just that Godzilla generally disdains to communicate with humans, and humans can't understand his animal language. Han Xiaoqing's telepathy can directly connect with Godzilla's mind and release goodwill. In fact, if possible, Han Xiaoqing would like to directly use telepathy to control Godzilla, but it is not possible to do so yet. For one thing, Han Xiaoqing had just acquired the ability of telepathy, so she couldn't use it flexibly. Secondly, Godzilla is not an ordinary sea creature, and has lived for tens of thousands of years. To some extent, he can even be called a god. Little guy, who are you? Sensing Han Xiaoqing's kindness, Godzilla stopped working and began to communicate with Han Xiaoqing. Spiritual communication is not verbal communication, but from the heart, so there is no language communication barrier. The spiritual voices of the two will automatically transform into a language system that the other party can understand. There may be a little error, but the general meaning will not change. For so many years, apart from those titanic beasts, it was the first time that Godzilla had formally communicated with humans. It felt quite novel, and because of telepathy, Godzilla had a good impression of Han Xiaoqing. My name is Han Xiaoqing, and I am not your enemy. If possible, I hope you can let these people go. When Han Xiaoqing was communicating with Godzilla, he glanced at the Titanic. Because of Godzilla's impact, the Titanic sank much faster than in the movie. Although Han Xiaoqing doesn't like those foreigners, there are still many children and Chinese people on board. In the case of insufficient ability, Han Xiaoqing will choose to be alone, but if he can, he still wants to save them. Leave them alone. It's the iron guys made by those little things that broke my ice. I'm not happy. The consequences are serious. Godzilla looked indifferent. He didn't like the human race very much. Because human beings are constantly destroying the balance of nature, but the degree of destruction is still within the range that Godzilla can bear, so it will be tolerated. Once the endless destruction of human beings exceeds Godzilla's bottom line, Godzilla will start a big cleansing of human beings. Human morality is not worth mentioning to Godzilla. As long as Godzilla has no morals, humans cannot use morals to restrain him. Han Xiaoqing heard the words and said helplessly, "It's because they were wrong first, I just hope. Are you teaching me how to do things?" As the flat-headed brother in the monster world, he is either fighting or on the way to fighting. Even a little guy wants to teach him how to do things. Really think of him as a cat or a dog, who can be ordered to do whatever he wants. Godzilla is very arrogant. What do you want? Han Xiaoqing clenched the trident tightly. Facing a giant like Godzilla, he was still a little imaginary. Just the brother's height of nearly 100 meters is enough to shock people. Compared with Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing's body shape is similar to that of humans and ants. Although he has obtained the physique of a sea king, he still has no idea if he really does it. Play with you and see what you can do. Perhaps because of living too long, Godzilla is very lonely in his heart. In this world, all his people are dead. Those who can speak are the titans who once fought side by side. It's a pity that the radiation energy of this world is not high, and it is not suitable for the giant titan. It has not communicated with humans for a long time. Han Xiaoqing was speechless. Playing with brother always, if you are not careful, you will die. You said that you are a beast that has lived for countless tens of thousands of years. How can you look like a child of tens of thousands of tons? Have you considered the risks I have to bear with my small body? Obviously, Godzilla didn't think about it. In other words, in Godzilla's view, if you don't have any skills, you don't deserve to play with him at all. Han Xiaoqing thought about it. Should he take risks for a group of strangers? Hearing the panicked calls for help and crying on the boat, Han Xiaoqing couldn't bear it. After thinking about it, he planned to listen to the conditions of the boss first. If it was too difficult, he would be alone. Brother, how do you want to play? At the same time, on the Titanic not far away, icy seawater poured into the cabin, mercilessly sweeping away the people inside. In the face of death, everyone is equal, whether it is a millionaire or a low-level crew, there is no difference at this moment. Hit by Godzilla's dorsal fin, the Titanic sank far faster than in the movies. The cruise ship that was almost broken into two sections began to tilt, and all kinds of items and people placed in the cabin began to dump. Some unlucky people were overwhelmed by falling tables and chairs, pianos, and some people were stacked on top of others, and the scene was chaotic. Jack, Ruth, the two men and women in love were scattered by the crowd, calling each other's name. As if in their eyes, only each other. Outside the bridge, Captain Smith held the fence tightly with both hands, looking at the culprit who crashed the Titanic, full of shock and anger. Where did this monster come from? The deputy ran over panting, and when he saw Godzilla looming in the night, he couldn't help swallowing a mouthful of saliva. My God, what kind of monster is that? Another crew member was horrified. The body just out of the water is hundreds of feet. I can't believe how huge it is. How can there be such a monster in the world? Smith withdrew his gaze and looked at his deputy. Misha, how is the situation now? When Missia heard this, she restrained her mind, didn't care to wipe off the cold sweat on her forehead, and replied, the hull is seriously damaged. Within 3 minutes, the water in the cabin will overflow the keel. The 3 bilges and number 6 boiler room were all destroyed, and all 5 watertight compartments were flooded. The hull would not last long, and would soon break from the position of number 3 compartment. Water will quickly overflow from the cabins on both sides of the E-splint. We are unable to save it. It is estimated that the ship will sink completely in half an hour at most. Smith sank for a moment and asked, how many people are on board? 2,200 lives. 3 bilges and the boiler room were destroyed by the impact of the monster before, and it is estimated that there are still about 2,000 people. Misha replied hoarsely. Hearing this, Smith almost went crazy looking at the giant beast in the distance, but all he can do now is try to save as many lives as possible. Gather people together immediately, distribute life jackets, and board the lifeboat as quickly as possible. How much can be saved? How much can be saved? Captain, do you want the ladies and children first? Misha asked. Smith hesitated for a moment. Are you brain dead? Of course, the rich and powerful are the priority, otherwise we will die when we go back. Equality for all is just a slogan. In disasters, the elderly, weak, women and children are often the first to be abandoned. There are very few good people who can survive the disaster, and more are those who are cruel and ruthless to the end. It's like trapping wolves and sheep in the same room, and many wolves that survive in the end are wolves in sheep's clothing. Really docile sheep will only leave their bones. The other side. Godzilla looked at Han Xiaoqing on his arm, and made a condition. It's very simple, you can try to attack in my palm, if you can hurt me, I will promise you one request. It's that simple. Han Xiaoqing was a little surprised. I even wonder if Godzilla wants to trick him into the palm of his hand, and then crush him to death. You think it's easy? Godzilla seemed to be in a good mood, looking at Han Xiaoqing. His conditions seem simple, but they are not simple. As a titan, Godzilla's body density is extremely high, and its defense is super high. The missile hits the body with scraping. Even if it is exposed to the nuclear bomb explosion head-on, it will not be injured, but it will be full of energy. It is conceivable that the defense is strong. Okay, I'll try. Anyway, he doesn't suffer from this condition. Then come on. Godzilla opened the paw of his right hand. The huge front paw had only 4 claws, each of which seemed extremely thick to Han Xiaoqing. Jumping into the palm of Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing felt as if Sun Wukong had fallen into the palm of Tathagata Buddha. I'm going to do it, I hurt you, don't be angry. HMPH, let's talk if you can hurt me. Hearing Godzilla's arrogance, Han Xiaoqing turned the trident in his hand, gripped the handle tightly, and struck hard. Neptune's trident with the sound of breaking the wind, it plunged straight down, piercing Godzilla's hard cortisol, and most of the fork pierced in instantly, and did not stop until Han Xiaoqing's hand held it. After obtaining the physique of Neptune, Han Xiaoqing's strength has reached an extremely terrifying level without knowing it. You must know that Aquaman in the Justice League can lift a cruise ship weighing 160,000 tons with bare hands under the impact of tidal waves. Strength may not be as perverted as Superman, but it is not much worse than Wonder Woman. Ah, it hurts, it hurts. Compared with Godzilla's huge size, Neptune's trident is not even a toothpick, but the trident is an artifact after all, and Superman will be broken if he is hit. Although Godzilla's defense is strong, it may not be stronger than Superman, especially now that Godzilla is not in its heyday. There is a special energy attached to the trident, which caused Godzilla to suffer unceasingly and subconsciously waved his claws. Say I'm not angry. When Godzilla waved his hand, Han Xiaoqing seemed to be riding a roller coaster without a seat belt. It was so exciting that he was thrown out with his trident at least 2 miles before falling into the sea. Han Xiaoqing, who fell into the water, was not hurt except for some damage to his clothes. But Godzilla, a little blood flowed from the palm and fell into the seawater, but the wound healed in an instant. The self-healing power of G cells is not a joke. Puff! Han Xiaoqing raised his head on the sea surface. At this time, the surrounding sea water was close to zero, and some thin ice could be seen on the sea surface. Soaked in the water, Han Xiaoqing didn't feel cold at all, but felt refreshed. Godzilla turned his head to look in the direction of Han Xiaoqing, with a faint blue light emitting from his body. Insert you, so you don't spray me with atomic breath. Humph. Godzilla sniffed out 2 clouds of gas, and then thought, I approve of you, are you interested in being my little brother? Hearing Godzilla's voice, Han Xiaoqing was a little speechless. I haven't even confiscated you as a mount, yet you actually want to take me as your younger brother. Who do you think I am, Han Xiaoqing? Flicking his wet hair, Han Xiaoqing decisively cut his palm with a trident, held up the bleeding palm, and then conveyed his heart. My elder brother is heroic and mighty. My younger brother has admired me for a long time. Thanks to my elder brother for not giving up, today I made an alliance with my blood. From now on, you will be my elder brother. We brothers share the blessings and share the difficulties. If you break this oath, you will be struck by thunder. Hack. Han Xiaoqing recognized Godzilla as the big brother with righteous words. Brother's strength is still very strong. No matter where the thick thighs of tens of meters are placed, it is useless not to hug them. And my brother has lived for countless centuries, he can be called a living fossil, and he is not at a disadvantage, he is still senior. The world we live in now seems to be not simple, maybe we will meet a strong enemy at some point, why not have multiple powerful helpers when fighting in the future? Okay, from now on, you will be my second brother. For your sake, brother, I will make an exception to help these people. Godzilla doesn't have many hobbies. Apart from eating, sleeping, and fighting monsters, he likes to be the boss. In the movie Godzilla 2, King of the Monsters, a boy like Raton made troubles for Godzilla in the early stage, and even injured Mothra. You must know that Mothra is the official CP of Godzilla, but when Godzilla finally bowed his head and recognized Godzilla as the boss, Godzilla still readily accepted it, which shows that he is extraordinary. Godzilla is an atomic dinosaur with a long lifespan. Different versions of Godzilla have different abilities, shapes, and personalities. For example, Godzilla in Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters, has a hot temper. He drives the human beings who destroy nature out of the earth, and makes the ecology of the earth change with him. Hell Godzilla kills gods and demons, tyrannical and incomparable. Han Xiaoqing was not sure which version of Godzilla in front of him came from. I don't know if my brother always recognizes him as a younger brother, is it a temporary idea, or is he just bored and looking for a partner to talk to? Telepathy can perceive the voices of sea creatures and control them, but Han Xiaoqing cannot fully understand Godzilla's thoughts. The current situation is fairly ideal, and a good relationship with Godzilla is definitely beneficial and harmless to Han Xiaoqing. On the other hand, on the Titanic, the people who were still alive on the ship were all terrified, and no one knew whether they would bid farewell to this world in the next moment. The cruise ship is sinking, and everyone's hearts are also sinking. Crunch, crunch, the deck on the ship has been overwhelmed, making a toothache sound, and the hull is leaning more and more. All the people on board flocked to the deck, and one of the bands was very dedicated, even at the critical moment of life and death, they still did not forget to play music. Then someone lit the fireworks, and the scene actually had a bit of poignant beauty. Don't get me wrong, lighting fireworks is not a celebration, but fireworks are used as a distress signal, hoping that passing ships can see them. But the Atlantic Ocean is vast, and the nearest ships are hundreds of nautical miles away, so they won't notice it at all. Captain, there are people making trouble on the 5th deck, and they have to squeeze into the lifeboat by force. Hearing the report from his subordinates, Captain Smith was not surprised. At the moment of life and death, gentlemen who are usually well dressed can't help but reveal their true nature. Survival is the most basic instinct of human beings. A correspondent hurried over. Sir, the Carpathia said that their current speed is 17 knots, which is already the fastest speed. Only one ship responding. Yes, this is the only one at the moment, and they say they can arrive within 4 hours. 4 hours, too late. While Smith was talking, he looked in the direction of Godzilla, and saw Godzilla suddenly waved his hand, as if something flew out. But the distance is too far to see clearly. There are no heavy weapons on the cruise ship, otherwise Smith would have pulled out the Italian cannon and blasted him a few times to relieve his anger. Look, sir, that monster has moved. Come towards us. God bless. Quickly release the lifeboat, quickly let us down. Don't squeeze. Get the hell out of here, you idiot. What? Seeing the unknown giant beast approaching, the already panicked crowd became even more panicked. The crowd was crowded on the deck, pushing and swaying, causing the ropes in the hands of the sailors to swing. A lifeboat that fell halfway overturned, and several people screamed and fell into the sea. Everyone, don't panic. Stand back. Go away. Let me go up. Mommy, I'm a lady. Let me go up first. I'll let you go first. Let's go to sea first. I'll give you £10,000 to give me the position. It's amazing to be rich. Get out. In the face of death, human nature is fully exposed. Whether it is a polite gentleman or an ordinary person, in order to get a position at this time, they will not care about face. It was the ladies who also dropped their reserve and began to chatter in the crowd. In order to survive, some people locked the way out, otherwise the people in the cabin came out just to give themselves an extra chance. Those locked up roared and cursed angrily, but to no avail, they could only smash the door frantically. Some smashed the glass of the lounge and ran out from other places. Under the shadow of death, many people burst out with a strong desire to survive. There are also some people who are desperate and huddled in the corner waiting for death to come. Some believers are praying to God to save them. Ruth and Jack were also imprisoned below. Seeing that the sea water was about to flood up, they ran desperately in the passage. At this moment, you can see the most authentic reactions of all kinds of people, and there are all kinds of life. After running for a while, the two came to another passage, but this place was also locked by chains. These fools want to kill us. Jack is angry, he just found love, he should have a happy life with Ruth. Not reconciled, Jack got angry, took a few people to dismantle a chair, smashed open the iron door, and then ran out with Ruth. Oh, God. As soon as she came to the deck, Ruth saw Godzilla with a blue light on her body. Are you kidding me? Jack was horrified, his hands and feet felt cold. Godzilla wriggled closer to the Titanic. What? There are monsters. Help. Little did those survivors know that Godzilla was planning to lend a helping hand. Seeing the huge monster approaching, they instinctively felt fear. The ladies were all pale with fright, and very few of them were timid and fainted from fright. Han Xiaoqing swam quickly in the sea, like a swordfish sprinting with all his strength, and his speed in the sea was no less than that of Godzilla. However, compared with Godzilla, he is too small, and it is difficult for ordinary people to see him in the dark. After approaching the Titanic, Han Xiaoqing saw many drowned people floating on the icy sea. They were struggling desperately, looking for straws. Some clung to the edge of the lifeboat, and some clung to the damaged planks, but they dared not let go even though they were shivering from the cold. Because once they let go, they may be a corpse when they float up again. After several sprints in the water, Han Xiaoqing jumped to Godzilla's tail, then ran quickly on Godzilla's body, and soon came to Godzilla's head. Standing here, you can see the situation more clearly. Godzilla hit the Titanic before, causing the cruise ship to nearly break apart, and many people were killed instantly. As the cruise ship sank, many people who were useless in lifeboats had no choice but to jump into the sea. Some want to survive, have some confidence in their swimming skills, and want to fight. Although it is dangerous to do so, they know that if they do not jump into the sea in time and stay away from the Titanic, when the cruise ship sinks, the vortex generated will drag everything around into the bottom of the sea. Some people were simply squeezed down, or accidentally fell into the water while being pushed. It was already late at night, and the temperature of the sea surface was very low, a few degrees below zero. The temperature of the sea was a little higher, but it was still bitingly cold. Most people lost their body temperature rapidly in the icy sea, and they couldn't last long. Some people who can't swim, without life jackets, struggled for a while and sank to the bottom of the sea. Don't jump into the sea, stay on board. Seeing people jumping into the sea one after another, Han Xiaoqing stopped immediately in English loudly. The situation is critical now, and under such circumstances, a trade-off must be made. Both he and Godzilla are strong, but they can't save everyone. When the people on the boat heard the sound, they all looked at Han Xiaoqing above Godzilla's head. At this time, Godzilla was only more than 20 meters away from the Titanic. With Godzilla's built-in Blu-ray special effects, people on board could see Han Xiaoqing's figure. Is there someone on that monster's head? How is this possible? Who can actually stand on the head of such a huge monster? What should we do now? The people on board were talking all over the place, and most of them lost their sense of proportion. Who are you? Captain Smith asked aloud. You can call me Aquaman, stay on the boat, Godzilla will help you transfer to the iceberg. While Han Xiaoqing was speaking, Godzilla had already started to move. As an ancient creature that has survived since ancient times, Godzilla can actually understand human speech. No need to care about the exclamation and screams of people around. Godzilla controlled the speed, stretched out his huge claws, grabbed the sides of the broken cruise ship from bottom to top, kicked his two hind legs, shook his tail, and lifted the half-sunken cruise ship. The Titanic lifted up. The huge hull is like a large toy in Godzilla's hands, and with the buoyancy of seawater, it doesn't take too much effort for Godzilla. As the hull rose, most people on board stopped jumping into the sea. After all, the outside temperature has reached several degrees below zero, so jumping into the sea is more dangerous than good. Holding a trident, Han Xiaoqing stood on top of Godzilla's head and shouted, "Don't panic, try to grab the objects you can grab, stabilize your body, and don't mess up." God, is he the angel you sent to save us? How did he do that? Saved. Don't be fooled by him, he is a devil. Just now that giant beast hit the cruise ship, I saw it with my own eyes. What? A monster hit the cruise ship? Attacked the cruise ship, and now he's pretending to be kind. What's his purpose? Shut up, if you offend him, we'll all be done. Is this how we look at it? The mess on the boat, fear, doubt, suspicion, the eyes of many people began to change. Han Xiaoqing's sense of hearing has been strengthened, and he can clearly hear the discussions of these people. Immediately shouted in a deep voice, "Shut up." His voice seemed to use a kind of magic power, and it was clearly transmitted to the ears of the people on board, and the noisy voice suddenly fell silent. It was true that Godzilla hit the cruise ship before, but it was inadvertent. As soon as Han Xiaoqing said this, he heard Godzilla's heartfelt voice. "No, I did it on purpose, who let them break my ice?" Quote. The corner of Han Xiaoqing's mouth twitched slightly. The arrogant Godzilla can't afford to be hurt. Immediately, the conversation changed. "I don't want to make excuses. If you don't want to die now, do as I say." While speaking, seeing many people struggling in the sea, Han Xiaoqing immediately jumped into the water to save them. In the ocean, Han Xiaoqing can breathe freely, which is one of the special abilities that come with obtaining the Neptune physique. Within a few breaths, Han Xiaoqing swam to the side of a drowning man. Raise the trident in your hand, let the opponent grab the handle of the trident, and then swim like another drowning person. Han Xiaoqing can save 4 or 5 people at a time, but compared with the survivors in the sea, this number is a drop in the bucket. At least 200 or 300 people fell into the water at this time. Han Xiaoqing was really out of control. He had just acquired the physique of the Neptune, so it was useless to receive teaching, and he could not control the water at all. At this moment, Han Xiaoqing in the sea sensed several killer whales swimming through the sea, watching him curiously. Killer whale dad. This man swims so fast. Killer whale mother. My child's father, where is there a giant beast? It looks very difficult to mess with, let's take the children away. Through the ability of telepathy, Han Xiaoqing was able to read their voices. With a change of mind, Han Xiaoqing raised his trident, and a special ripple spread rapidly in the sea water. In the ocean, Han Xiaoqing's telepathy can now be transmitted for more than 10 nautical miles, and with the increase of the trident, it can spread to farther places. The marine creatures within a radius of 50 nautical miles all got the news immediately, and moved after hearing the news, swimming towards Han Xiaoqing's direction. Whales, sharks, dolphins, and giant squids are all there. With the help of marine life, those who fell into the water will be carried to the surface in no time. Chris was one of those who fell overboard when he was pushed to the surface by a shark. You asked him if he was moved. He dared not move at all. Chris didn't understand the current situation, and shivered as he climbed on the shark's back. There are many people around who are in the same situation as him. Some were held up by killer whales, some were rolled up by octopuses, and they swam towards the iceberg or the nearest lifeboat. A strange and spectacular scene appeared in this sea area. Countless marine creatures began to rescue humans, and humans and animals seemed to be in harmony. Such a peculiar scene is breathtaking. But at the juncture of life and death, people's desire to survive is above all else, and they have no time to take care of too much. Godzilla supported the broken cruise ship and swam towards the iceberg. Han Xiaoqing reminded, "Brother, be careful." Know it. Godzilla took the Titanic close to the iceberg carefully, and slowly leaned the hull against the edge of the iceberg. Like a dragon going out to sea, Han Xiaoqing leapt out of the sea, jumped directly onto the board of the ship dozens of meters high, and shouted to the panicked people around, "Immediately take the clothes and supplies and transfer them to the iceberg. At the same time, contact the passing ships nearby. The outside temperature is very low now. Everyone try to keep warm as much as possible." The survivors on the Titanic were in shock. Looking at Han Xiaoqing and Godzilla, there was both curiosity and fear. Han Xiaoqing ignored these people, turned his head and jumped into the water, and pulled some of the people who fell into the water onto Godzilla's back. Then used Godzilla's back as a bridge to send these guys back to the ship as quickly as possible, in exchange for dry clothes. The Titanic was temporarily stabilized by Godzilla on the edge of the iceberg, and the people on board talked a lot. "Did you see that? Just now he jumped more than 10 meters high. Is this a superhero? Like Captain America?" Hearing the accent, "It looks like Chinese. He told us to gather on the iceberg. Is he planning to let that monster eat us?" "Probably not. If you want to eat us, why bother to save us?" "Maybe it's because we were all on the boat before, and it was inconvenient to eat, but now it hit us on the iceberg, so it's easier to eat. Maybe he likes to eat ice-cold food. Don't scare me." "Perhaps it is possible. I saw that monster crash the Titanic before." "I saw it too. Then what should we do? Now we are in the vast sea, and the weather is so cold. Without a boat, where can we go? Perhaps the monster just hit the cruise ship accidentally, and now we are making amends. We should think on the bright side. Thinking about what to do. I'm almost freezing to death. Don't think about what is there. If you don't light a fire to keep warm, before the rescue feels, we will freeze to death here. Don't be dazed. Go to the iceberg first. The cruise ship may sink anytime soon. Don't all go to the iceberg. There are 3 lifeboats, some of them go to the lifeboats. I'm in the lifeboat. Let me try. Stop arguing. Let the women and children get on the lifeboat, and the others follow me to the iceberg to wait for rescue. Misha has already contacted a ship to come to the rescue. As long as we persist for 4 hours, we can be rescued." "Really? Great. 4 hours, I don't know if I can resist it." Under the arrangement of Captain Smith, the crowd gradually subsided the commotion. Some went on lifeboats, some on icebergs, and others began to rescue those who fell into the water. The iceberg is actually not safe. The place is so big and it may sink at any time. Coupled with the severe cold weather, it is very unfriendly to survivors. In such an environment, cold is the biggest threat to people. Especially for those who fell into the water, their clothes were already soaked, and their body temperature was rapidly passing away. If they were not warmed in time, their lives would be in danger. Human life is too fragile, precious and cheap. In fact, Han Xiaoqing didn't like these foreigners. Most of the rich people on the Titanic were extravagant, luxurious, and there were many capitalists who ate human blood. But Han Xiaoqing's telepathy is only aimed at marine life, and he can't see through people's hearts. Don't know which ones should be saved and which ones are not worth saving. After saving all the people who could be saved on the iceberg, Han Xiaoqing stood in an open place, turned around and saw Rusi and Xiao Lizzie cuddling together again. Both of them were shivering from the cold at this time, their faces were pale, but they did not forget to gnaw on each other to keep warm. "Can't you stop for a while and see the occasion?" Han Xiaoqing complained in his heart. For a single dog like him, the sour smell of love can invisibly cause critical damage. Even if you save someone, you can be forcefully stuffed with dog food. Where can you justify it? Survivors went up to the iceberg one after another, and some of them floated at sea in lifeboats. The sinking of the Titanic has become a certainty, and it is impossible for Godzilla to support this severely damaged cruise ship all the time. After rescuing people from the iceberg, Han Xiaoqing's clothes were already soaked, and the cold sea breeze blew, but he didn't feel the cold, just like bathing in the spring breeze. The others did not have the strong physique of the Neptune. Those who fell into the water were shivering. After climbing the iceberg, with the help of others, they quickly changed into clothes, but even so, their faces were still pale from the cold. Some people have been delirious from the cold, and it is unknown whether they can survive. You all go away. Back on Godzilla's dorsal fin, Han Xiaoqing looked at the surrounding marine life and released the control of telepathy. After regaining their self-awareness, the marine creatures fled in all directions immediately. Can I put this thing down? Godzilla's heartfelt voice came. With the physique of Neptune, Han Xiaoqing's hearing and vision have been strengthened. Although it is not as good as Superman's ability to monitor the world, he can still hear clearly within a few miles. He could hear the movement of people on the cruise ship, and said via telepathy, "Wait a minute, I'll go in and pull people out." After saying that, Han Xiaoqing sprinted quickly, jumped up, smashed the glass directly, and entered the interior of the cruise ship. It was already a mess here. Han Xiaoqing looked around and found that there were still people taking advantage of the chaos to collect finances, and suddenly frowned slightly. No matter what time it is, these people are still thinking of making money. They really want money but not life. Putting the trident on the ground, Han Xiaoqing shouted, "What are you doing?" Wait, my luggage is still below." A blonde man with a big back spoke. A lady also said, "My jewelry fell off, it is very important to me." There was also a sly-eyed man holding a bag of things, and he knew it came from somewhere else. Seeing this, Han Xiaoqing really wanted to stab them with a fork and send these strange flowers to the sky, side by side with the sun. Who are they? In addition to these wonderful things, there are some people who are trapped, and they are the ones who need to be rescued. Han Xiaoqing didn't bother to pay attention to these greedy people who wanted to evacuate the cruise ship, and entered the cabin below looking for help. Some crew members are also in the rescue. I have to say that the quality of some crew members is still very good. At the entrance of a locked corridor, Han Xiaoqing found several survivors, all of whom were Chinese. "Help! Save us!" A few Chinese snuggled up at the entrance of the corridor had no idea what was going on outside. When they saw Han Xiaoqing passing by, they hurriedly called for help. Han Xiaoqing didn't talk nonsense, grabbed the iron gate with his bare hands, and tore it down. "Go out in this direction, there are people there to respond." After pointing out the direction, Han Xiaoqing continued to go deep into the bottom. This place has been submerged by seawater. Although part of the seawater flowed out after being lifted up by Godzilla, some seawater still remains. Some rooms have been turned into fish ponds. Help! Help! Franks was trapped in the room, and the seawater flooded most of the room. He could only float on the water, breathing with his head close to the ceiling. It's not that he didn't try to open the door, but because of the water pressure, he couldn't open the door from inside the room at all. After the room was closed, the air was thin, and Franks felt that he could hardly breathe. Han Xiaoqing, who heard the movement, arrived and smashed the gate with his fist, and the seawater gushed out along the hole. If you look carefully, you can find a few small fish. After quickly checking the cruise ship from top to bottom, Han Xiaoqing carried a comatose young woman and 2 children to the deck. I found that those people were not satisfied with moving things before, and some new faces joined the ranks, as if they would not give up until they emptied the Titanic. Looking at these small movements, Godzilla has already exhaled several times from his nostrils, obviously impatient. Han Xiaoqing shouted, "Climb the iceberg for me right now." "Yellow monkey, who do you think you are?" When an uninformed white man heard the words and saw that Han Xiaoqing was of yellow race, he immediately showed a look of arrogance. His eyes swept over the trident in Han Xiaoqing's hand, and there was a look of greed in his eyes. "You lowly fellow, how dare you steal my things?" Tom was rescued just now, and he hasn't found Godzilla from the outside world, and he doesn't know about Han Xiaoqing's deeds. When the surrounding crew heard this, they immediately stepped forward to hold him back. "Sir, please don't make trouble." Tom was still yelling. "What are you pulling me for? I'm a VIP, catch this thief quickly, he stole my things." Han Xiaoqing was too lazy to talk nonsense with this kind of person, put down the unconscious young woman, let others take away the 2 children beside him, and then came to Tom. The crew member next to him stepped aside consciously, and looked at Han Xiaoqing with a little worship and awe in his eyes. After Tom got away, he took out a revolver from his waist, trying to force the Asian kid in front of him to hand over his trident. He could see that this thing was worth a lot. But before he could raise the pistol, Han Xiaoqing grabbed the barrel of the gun, squeezed it hard, and flattened the barrel. Looking at the deformed barrel, Tom's throat squirmed, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and stammered, "What do you want to do? I'm an American citizen." "I see, you don't need to emphasize it again, I just think you need to calm down." While speaking, Han Xiaoqing put his hand on Tom's chest and pushed hard. What? Tom felt as if he had been hit by a speeding train, and he flew upside down uncontrollably. Everything was so sudden that the crew next to it had no time to stop it. In Tom's sight, he could only feel the wind blowing in his ears, and the scene in front of him quickly retreated. Suddenly, he saw Godzilla standing next to the cruise ship, his mouth opened wide unconsciously, and then his body began to falling into the water with a scream, and was bitten to death by a shark. Looking around, Han Xiaoqing said coldly, "1 minute, if you don't want to go to the iceberg, then sink into the Atlantic Ocean with the cruise ship." When everyone heard the words, they became much more honest. Human nature is to bully the weak and fear the hard, sometimes you have to be a little bit stronger to hold the field. A few minutes later, all the survivors climbed onto the iceberg. Han Xiaoqing stood on the iceberg and sent a voice transmission to Godzilla, "Thank you, brother, please drag the cruise ship away." "My brother, you're welcome." Godzilla responded, dragged the Titanic away from the iceberg, and swam away. Otherwise, if the Titanic is allowed to sink near the iceberg, the eddy current generated may cause the iceberg to sink. On the iceberg, the survivors gathered together and saw Godzilla dragging the cruise ship away, and they immediately exploded. How did that monster drag the cruise ship away? What does he want to do? What exactly is going on? Facing the commotion of the crowd, Captain Smith stepped forward to appease everyone's emotions. Among these survivors, we can see that different people have different attitudes in the face of disasters. Some people just know how to cry for help. Some people give up on themselves. Some people choose to live and die with their lover. Some people escaped with difficulty and never gave up until the last moment. At this time, about 1,700 people survived, and most of them were huddling together on the iceberg to keep warm. Those few dedicated musicians were extremely conspicuous, and they still did not forget to play music in the ice and snow. The music was interrupted until someone bumped into it. One of the violinists sighed, "What's the use of that? No one is listening to us." The white-haired violinist Wallace seemed to have seen through the sophistication of the world, and he didn't take it seriously. They didn't listen to it when they were eating before. "Come on, let's play music again, so it's warmer." In Wallace's view, those rich people are a bunch of arty people who know shit music. Hearing this, another violinist also set up his violin and asked, "What shall we play?" Wallace hesitated. "Orpheus is in Hades." Then the light music sounded again. But the people around are almost frozen into dogs, and no one appreciates it at all. A few musicians didn't care either. This time, they played music for themselves and moved their bodies, which was indeed warmer. What a group of optimistic people. Hearing the sound of music, Han Xiaoqing's mood eased a little. But the forest is big, and there are all kinds of birds and people. Especially those who like to make trouble for no reason, always think that they are the center of the world, and the whole world should revolve around them. You have to give me a reasonable explanation today. I am the Baron of the British Empire, now give me the clothes, and I ask you to give me the clothes. Go away, move me again, and I'll beat you up. Come on, you fool. Don't squeeze. The cold weather made people's hands and feet cold. Some people started to grab their clothes, the crowd was commotion again, and several people accidentally fell into the water while pushing. On the other hand, Ruth and Jack stayed together, you and I. This scene made Ruth's fiancé copyright Carl turn green with anger. There are three things men can't bear: the hatred of killing their father and the hatred of taking their wives. As a young man from a rich family, Carl is worth tens of millions, young and promising. No matter where he is the object of all the stars, but he let a poor boy kidnap his fiancée copyrightee. How can he be smooth? And immediately wants to go to fix Jack. But the crowd was crowded, and he couldn't squeeze through for a while. Bang bang bang. Seeing that the situation was chaotic, Captain Smith raised his gun and fired several shots into the sky. Only then did the rioting crowd quiet down. Everyone calm down. We will be fine, bear with it, the rescue ship has already rushed to us. In times of crisis, we can only survive if we hug together to keep warm. After appeasing the crowd, Smith then looked at Han Xiaoqing, who was on the independent side. At this time, Han Xiaoqing's clothes were soaked. Han Xiaoqing was not afraid of the cold, but it was uncomfortable to wear, so he simply tore off the clothes and threw them aside. In fact, wearing wet pants is not comfortable, but there are so many people here, Han Xiaoqing can't be honest with these people, he also has face. After hesitating for a while, Smith took out a set of clothes, walked forward with a bottle of wine, and said, "Your Excellency, Neptune, put on your clothes, drink some wine, and warm up." Neptune is the name Han Xiaoqing self-reported before. Smith remembered that there was nothing wrong with calling Han Xiaoqing that way. "Thank you, but you don't need the clothes. Give it to those who need it." Han Xiaoqing took a sip from the bottle. The whiskey tasted very pure. As for clothes, he doesn't need them. Neptune's physique is far from that of ordinary people. Even in the Arctic Circle, he doesn't need to wear clothes to keep out the cold. And he will go into the water in a while, so there is no need to do more. Smith heard the words, and saw that Han Xiaoqing was not afraid of the cold, and handed over the clothes to others, and said, "Your Excellency, Haiwang, may I ask you a few questions?" After taking a sip of wine, Han Xiaoqing looked at Smith. "Speak directly." "I heard you called that monster Godzilla, is that his name? Why did he hit the cruise ship?" Smith must ask this question clearly. This is the biggest accident in his nautical career. Hundreds of people died. Even if he goes back alive, his career will be over. Now I just want to figure out the cause and process, otherwise I will die in peace. Yes, Godzilla is his name. Han Xiaoqing nodded. As for why Godzilla hit the cruise ship, it's all your fault. Smith wondered, why did this matter involve him again? I reminded you before that the Titanic would hit an iceberg, but instead of changing its course, you speeded up instead. If something happened, of course it was your responsibility as the captain. Han Xiaoqing said. It was the message you left on the ship before. Smith recalled the previous events, and the crew did find out that the Titanic would hit the iceberg. But at that time, he didn't take it seriously at all. Instead, he insisted on going his own way and accelerated his driving, causing him to hit an iceberg. But is there any inevitable connection between the cruise ship hitting the iceberg and Godzilla hitting the cruise ship? It was indeed his mistake that the Titanic hit the iceberg, but without Godzilla's impact, the damage to the Titanic would not have been so great. Turning to look at the back of Godzilla going away, Han Xiaoqing said, "Of course it has something to do with it. The iceberg was used by Godzilla to extinguish the fire. He was lying flat in the sea, and you suddenly ran into it with a boat. In exchange for you, can you not be angry? What's more, even if there is no Godzilla, given the damage of the cruise ship after hitting the iceberg, it will sink sooner or later. Most people are safe now, which is already a great blessing among misfortunes." Smith heard the words, opened his mouth, and wanted to say something, but swallowed the words back. Han Xiaoqing returned the bottle to Smith. "It's too late to say this now, think about how to keep these people alive. In addition, I also have some questions to ask you. Please say." Smith had mixed feelings in his heart. Most of his anger towards Godzilla had been vented, and more of it was self-blame and remorse, but he still tried to maintain his demeanor in front of Han Xiaoqing. "What year is it?" Han Xiaoqing asked casually. Smith was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect the other party to ask such a simple question, and replied, "It's 1962 now." 1962. Are you sure? Han Xiaoqing was slightly surprised when he heard this. Smith was very sure. "Of course, although I am old, I am not confused. Today is April 14, 1962. Now it is past 12 o'clock. It should be the 15th. I will never forget this day. Han Xiaoqing fell into deep thought. He remembered that in the movie Titanic, the time when the Titanic sank was obviously 1912, and there was a gap of 50 years between the two. If Smith wasn't kidding, the timeline of this world is pretty abnormal. But it's right to think about it, the Titanic has hit Godzilla, so it's no wonder it's normal. And when Han Xiaoqing was saving someone before, he heard someone mention Captain America, which made Han Xiaoqing think of the Marvel Universe. The Marvel Universe is not an independent universe. There are countless parallel universes, including the comic version of Godzilla vs. the Avengers. If this idea is true, then the water in this world is far deeper than imagined. Smith's words made Han Xiaoqing think a lot. After a moment of silence, Han Xiaoqing began to think about where to go. He won't be with this group of people, and he doesn't know how powerful humans are in this world today. How many powerful black technologies are there? For safety reasons, leaving alone is the best option. When it comes to the Marvel world, it means that the human world has many extraordinary powers. The ability of Neptune alone still does not have much guarantee. The early stage was fine, but in the later stage, the bosses in the Marvel world became more and more perverted. Even if they honestly found a place to hide, they might be wiped out by Thanos snapping his fingers. Although the plot of the reunion is still far away, but it has to be guarded, Han Xiaoqing doesn't want to bet on luck with half the chance of death. Not to mention there is Godzilla, which means that the monster universe also exists. The pretty boys on Skull Island don't care, but Ghidorah may come out to harm humans at any time. Judging from the information obtained so far, the world he lives in is mostly the comic version of Marvel, which is more dangerous than the movie version. If you want to become stronger, the best way is to keep checking in through the check-in system to get rewards. By now, Han Xiaoqing has roughly figured out the functions of the check-in system. Checking in is not possible anytime, anywhere, it must be triggered at a specific location or when meeting a special person. What Han Xiaoqing didn't know was that at the same time he traveled across, a bald mage had noticed his existence in a hidden temple in the Himalayas. This mage is called Ji Yi, nicknamed the Supreme Mage. He is an existence who can watch the timeline at any time. He is currently at the ceiling of the Earth's combat power and is also one of the guardians of the Earth. Because of Han Xiaoqing's appearance, the original timeline fluctuated violently, and many time branches were extended. Although they did not collapse, they exploded and destroyed the universe. But with such drastic fluctuations in the timeline, it's hard not to attract Ji Yuyi's attention. As the guardian of the Earth, Ancient One did not act. To be precise, he acted, but did not fully act. Because when he shot, he encountered a powerful existence warning from a higher dimension, and he was not allowed to reverse time and return to the original trajectory. In the Atlantic Ocean, Godzilla swam back after abandoning the cruise ship in the distance, and said in his heart, "Second brother, let's go, brother will take you home." Go home, Inner Earth. Han Xiaoqing has no home in this world, and thought that the home Godzilla mentioned was his home. Not long before the time travel, he watched Godzilla vs. King Kong, and there was a setting in the movie. That is the inner world. There is a huge void inside the Earth, and those giant beasts with a body length of tens of meters inhabit it. It is the home of monsters. Only by accident, they will reach the surface through long tunnels. Godzilla replied, "Yes, you still know the inner world, but I'm not talking about the inner world, but Atlantis. Aren't you from Atlantis? Didn't the continent of Atlantis sink? Didn't the Atlanteans become extinct? And I don't seem to have said that I am an Atlantean." Han Xiaoqing felt a little strange. Although he obtained the physique of Aquaman and the trident, if it was in the 600th world, it would be understandable to be mistaken for Atlantis, but shouldn't this be the Marvel world? Is this world also integrated with the DC universe? Godzilla thought to himself. The continent of Atlantis has indeed sunk, but the people of Atlantis are not extinct. Some of them survived on the bottom of the sea. I think your physique and ability are similar to theirs. Don't tell me, don't you know it yourself? Atlanteans under the sea. There are many legends about the continent of Atlantis. Han Xiaoqing remembers that Atlantis also appeared in Marvel Comics. It's just that there is no movie, so the popularity is not high. Thinking of this, Han Xiaoqing telepathically said, "Brother, can you take me to Atlantis?" "Of course it's okay. I'm the beast they enshrine, and I'll hang out with the big brother." I guarantee you will eat well and drink spicy food. Godzilla has the style of being a big brother, so it's a pity not to mix with society. At this moment, Han Xiaoqing heard the sound of a helicopter coming from a distance. He was a little surprised, but felt reasonable. It's right to think about it. It's 1962, and it's still the Marvel world. It's normal for technology to be more advanced. Turning to look at Smith. Captain, rescue will arrive soon, and it's time for me to retire. After finishing speaking, under the eyes of everyone, he jumped from the iceberg to Godzilla's back, held a trident in his right hand, grabbed the edge of Godzilla's dorsal fin with the other hand, and sank into the icy sea water with Godzilla. Seeing this scene, Ruth and Jack had complicated expressions, and more of them were the joy of surviving after the catastrophe. Although they are not completely out of trouble now, at least they are still together. And seeing his fiancée copyrighty being hugged by others and showing a sweet smile, Carl's face twisted with anger. Others have mixed feelings. The existence of Godzilla brought them a lot of pressure. Even if Godzilla didn't do anything, just floating on the sea made their hearts beat faster involuntarily. Most produced emotions of fear, others adoration. Looking at the gradually calming sea, Smith fell into deep thought. Misha next to him stepped forward and said, "Sir, who do you think this Sea King is?" Smith fell into memory, and after a moment of silence, he said, "Misha, do you remember the Raider team?" When talking about the Raider squad, Misha came to the spirit. Of course I remember. The Raider squad is a superhero team composed of superheroes such as Captain America, Bucky, Human Torch, Toro and Namor under the organization of Churchill. They joined forces to attack the Axis power camp, mainly anti-Germany, during World War II. They are all my idols. Smith nodded, and said in a deep voice, "Actually, Namor has another title." "What?" Misha asked curiously. Smith looked serious. "Sea King." "Sea King, you mean, there is also a Sea King in Atlantis?" Han Xiaoqing sat on Godzilla with the wind and sank all the way. In his spare time, he listened to Godzilla's story about Atlantis. As a living fossil, Godzilla is definitely well informed. Although he sleeps most of the time, he can't hold him alive for long. In order to eliminate the destroyer among the monsters, Godzilla traveled almost all over the world, and knew many unknown secrets. Godzilla thought to himself, "Yeah, speaking of it, your abilities are very similar to his, and your weapons are all tridents, but that kid is not a good person, and he actually wanted me to use him as a mount. If it wasn't for Atlanta for the sake of my grandparents enshrining me for generations, I will kill him with a mouthful of atomic breath. Has the same ability as me, and also has a trident. What's his name?" Han Xiaoqing was thoughtful. Godzilla thought, "It seems to be called Namor Mai." Han Xiaoqing had a thought, "Namor Mackenzie. Yes, that's the name." Godzilla nodded his flat head, and at the same time accelerated to sprint towards the bottom of the sea. Marvel and DC can be regarded as a pair of old enemies. They have been in love and killed each other for many years, and they often copy and learn from each other. Many superheroes with similar abilities have been produced under their banners. For example, DC has Superman, and Marvel has Sentinel. DC has Batman, Marvel has Iron Man. DC has The Flash, Marvel has Quicksilver. If you want to say which superhero has the most similar experience and abilities, then Sea King can definitely be among the best. Hearing Godzilla's words, Han Xiaoqing recalled the story about Namor Mackenzie. Namor Mackenzie is the first mutant created in the history of American comics. The birth of Marvel Aquaman Namor is basically the same as DC's Aquaman Arthur. Namor is also a hybrid of humans and the Queen of Atlantis. Rather than saying that he is a mutant, it is more appropriate to call him a hybrid. Namor Mackenzie's father, Leonard Mackenzie, was an American captain. During Leonard's expedition to the Antarctic in 1920, the route was blocked by ice floes. Leonard asked his sailors to use explosives to smash the ice floes into pieces. Inadvertently caused serious damage to the ancient underwater country Atlantis. Thacker, king of Atlantis, ordered his daughter, Finn, to investigate the cause of the explosion. During the investigation, Finn was accidentally injured and was taken in by Leonard. They lived on the boat for several weeks, during which they fell in love and did everything they should and shouldn't do. Losing news of his daughter, King Thacker worried that his daughter would be killed or kidnapped by land people, so he sent people to the sea to search and found his daughter Finn on board. King Thacker was more hostile to land people, and mistakenly thought that his daughter had been captured by the opponent, so he ordered to attack Leonard's ship, resulting in the death of all crew members including Leonard. Fern was brought back to Atlantis, and a few months later, she gave birth to a son, Namor Mackenzie. Because he is of mixed race, Namor's skin color is close to that of human beings, which is different from the light blue skin color of other Atlanteans. Therefore, Namor has been discriminated against by his tribe since he was a child, and he is regarded as a low-level, heterogeneous, and is called a monster. The title of the fetus. In the end, he was expelled from the imperial city of Atlantis by the priest. Namor's mother did not dare to challenge the thousands of years of tradition, so she took Namor to hide in the slums of Atlantis. But here, because of his skin color, Namor was still ridiculed and bullied by other Atlanteans. Later, under pressure, Namor's mother married an Atlantean and gave birth to Namor's half-sister Namora, and the family fled to Manhattan. After becoming an adult, Namor found that his power was getting stronger and stronger, and he returned to Atlantis. After a series of struggles, Namor got the Nipton Trident, regained the throne, won the recognition of the people of Atlantis, and became the King of Atlantis. Since then, Namor has made it his mission to protect the ocean and his people. When the Second World War broke out, the Atlanteans were accidentally captured by terrorists and used as test subjects, resulting in their tragic death. Namor didn't know the situation on the land. Seeing that his tribe was killed by the people on the land, he launched a tsunami to attack New York in a rage. Seeing that something that he likes to hear and see is about to happen, the first generation of Thunderbolt came forward to stop it. Afterwards, Namor and Human Torch did not know each other. Together with the newly emerged Captain America and some superpowers, they formed the Invaders against evil. From the perspective of ability, Namor and Arthur, the two Sea Kings, have basically the same performance. They have a super strong body, can move at a super high speed on the bottom of the sea, can talk to marine life, and use trident weapons. The only difference is that Namor has two pairs of small wings on his feet, which can fly in the air, but Arthur cannot. But Namor cannot stay on land for a long time, he has to return to the water every once in a while, otherwise his lifespan will be lost. Arthur does not have this shortcoming. The two brothers can be regarded as evenly matched, and they are not like each other. However, compared to DC's Neptune Arthur, Marvel's Neptune Namor is not very popular because of his unlikable personality. Although he is a veteran superhero of Marvel, he has not made an independent movie so far, so his reputation is not obvious. If Han Xiaoqing hadn't read Marvel comics, he might not have known that Aquaman also existed in Marvel. Now that Han Xiaoqing has acquired the ability of DC Neptune, there is also Neptune in this world, so naturally he has to pay a visit. Godzilla didn't know what Han Xiaoqing was thinking, and dived down while breathing bubbles. As an ancient titan, Godzilla's physique can be called abnormal, and the speed of swimming in the sea can break through the speed of sound at the fastest, but under normal circumstances, Godzilla is slow. Because Han Xiaoqing has the physique of a sea king, he can breathe freely in the water, can resist and withstand extreme cold and heavy pressure, and his eyes can see things clearly in the dark. Strength, speed, and responsiveness are far beyond ordinary people, but because he has just obtained the physique of Neptune, many abilities have not yet been developed. Theoretically speaking, the current Han Xiaoqing also has a very high magical talent, but he doesn't know how to use it. At most, he uses the Neptune Trident to launch energy bombs and resist water, but he still can't fly. Although I know the details of Neptune Namor, how strong is Namor now? Han Xiaoqing is also unclear. The information in the comics can only be used as a reference. This time I went to Atlantis with Godzilla, mainly to check out the spots and see if I could check in. If possible, it would be nice to overthrow Namor and seize the throne of Atlantis. Anyway, Atlantis needs a king, why can't that king be me? Han Xiaoqing is quite ambitious. In all fairness, he likes such a colorful world a little bit, and the reason is just two words: exciting. From appearing on the Titanic, to meeting Godzilla, obtaining a check-in system, and possessing the ability of Aquaman. Everything is like a dream. Han Xiaoqing had an unreal feeling, but this feeling fascinated him. The strong power also made him a little swollen. At this time, it has reached 5,000 feet below the sea level. At this position, it is difficult for ordinary submarines to reach this depth. The sun does not reach here, so the deep sea is darker. Looking around, in Han Xiaoqing's eyes, the dark environment is still very clear, and many marine life and vegetation with special lighting effects can be seen along the way. Most of them are jellyfish. On the bottom of the sea, you can also see many sunken ships, on which many marine creatures live. There is a big monster, run. It will be eaten, run, run. I don't want to move, he is so big, he probably won't like my flesh. Deep in the ocean, Han Xiaoqing can hear the voices of the surrounding marine life. Compared with humans, these marine creatures are much simpler. Godzilla didn't care about those sea creatures. His main food was nuclear radiation. Under normal circumstances, he didn't need to prey. Atlantis is located at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. Like many legends, Atlantis in this world also sank, but the Atlantis survived tenaciously. Atlantis in the Marvel world is similar to the Atlantis in the 600th world. It is a highly technologically advanced empire, and even developed and utilized unlimited energy on a large scale. After the sinking of the continent of Atlantis, the scientific and technological direction of the Atlanteans turned to the ocean, that is, water control technology, and developed many high-tech, such as nanotechnology, ultra-pure water membrane, energy cannon, technological armament, biotechnology, control and tame organisms, transformation research, etc. Relatively speaking, among the countries on Earth, perhaps only Wakanda, which has mines, can compete with Atlantis. Godzilla headed west all the way. After passing through a long and narrow submarine canyon, a magnificent underwater city came into Han Xiaoqing's eyes. This is Atlantis, it's really spectacular. It's hard to believe that in the tens of thousands of feet of deep sea, you can see a brightly lit stalwart city. The existence of Atlantis is like a miracle of life. The peculiar architectural style, all kinds of unprecedented technologies, many strange sea creatures, and those blue-skinned Atlanteans all made Han Xiaoqing feel refreshed. Just like those 10-meter-long king crabs, how many meals do you have to eat? Compared with the 600th world, the Atlanteans are not much different from humans. The Atlanteans in the Marvel world have light blue skin, pointed ears like elves, and gill-like respiratory organs on their necks, allowing them to breathe freely in the water. The people of Atlantis usually live on seaweed and raw fish, living in caves and reefs, and only those nobles can live in luxurious buildings. Today's Atlanteans have fully adapted to living in the deep sea. If they leave the ocean and are not protected by special protective clothing, it is difficult for these people to survive for more than 5 minutes after landing. A very few powerful existences can live longer, but their lifespan will also be shortened. Perhaps it is because their ancestors lived in the deep sea area for generations, and the harsh environment accelerated the evolution of the Atlanteans, making their physiques very strong. Compared with ordinary people on the ground, they are 10 times stronger. Those who swim in the water, it's also fast. Withstanding the pressure and frigid temperatures of the ocean floor is a piece of cake for them. Han Xiaoqing learned from Godzilla that Atlantis was once a small land in the Atlantic Ocean and the cradle of advanced civilization. About 20,000 years ago, Atlantis sank into the sea due to an earthquake. Because the energy shield was activated in time, the people on the continent of Atlantis survived, but they were also trapped in the dark deep sea. If it weren't for advanced technology, the people of Atlantis would not have survived at all. About 10,000 years ago, perhaps due to the pressure of survival, some of the human branch genes mutated and evolved into today's Atlanteans, giving them the ability to survive freely underwater. About 200 years ago, due to the submarine earthquake, a new connection point appeared between the inner Earth world and Atlantis, and some underground monsters ran out. In order to protect the safety of his people, King Thacker moved his capital near the South Pole. Today's Atlantis is an old site. As for the monsters that ran out, they have been dealt with by Godzilla. I have to say that the path of evolution is amazing, and most Atlanteans still retain their human form and appearance. If it weren't for the light blue skin and the fish gills that looked like tattoos on the neck, it would look like a human being. However, a small number of mutations became more severe, and they became half human, half fish. The legend of mermaids in this world comes from this. Han Xiaoqing said, "Brother, I always thought you were a house beast, but I didn't expect you to know so many secrets." That's right, I don't have any skills, but I can live. When those Atlanteans sacrificed to me, they often nagged about these things. It's annoying. Hearing the voice of Godzilla Versailles, Han Xiaoqing smiled. As Godzilla approached, people in Atlantis also discovered Godzilla's arrival. It's Lord Patronus. Master Patronus is here, hurry up and inform the priest. It's really lucky to be able to meet Lord Patronus with my own eyes. Congratulations, Lord Patronus. Many Atlanteans saluted Godzilla respectfully. It can be seen that Godzilla did not brag before, and in Atlantis, Godzilla's face is very good. Here, Godzilla is like a star who is popular among the stars, sought after by others, and has his own fan base. Aang! Godzilla roared triumphantly, the water was rolling, and the fish scattered around. Ordinary Atlanteans did not have the ability to communicate with sea creatures, and could not understand Godzilla's meaning, so they bowed their heads respectfully. Han Xiaoqing understood the meaning of Godzilla's roar. It's nothing more than saying, "Little brother, do you think I'm awesome, big brother?" What else can Han Xiaoqing say? He can only say, "Brother is mighty." Godzilla followed suit. His neck was a little too high unconsciously, and then he swam to a submarine platform with ease. On the way, Han Xiaoqing could see many huge forts on the city walls of Atlantis, and there were traces left after the war in the distance, as well as the remains of some huge unknown monsters. Judging from the tens of meters of ribs, the size of this monster must have been quite large. Atlantis has been renovated, and Han Xiaoqing came here for the first time, but there is nothing unusual about it. After passing through a huge protective shield resembling a blister, Godzilla walked upright and came to the platform. The space here is not much different from that on land, there is no water pressure, and there is air, even ordinary people can survive here. Ding! The host is currently located on the Atlantis sacrificial platform and meets the check-in requirements. Do you want to check in? Hearing the sudden system prompt, Han Xiaoqing was overjoyed. Punch the card. Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 3, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting the Golden Battle Suit. Golden Battle Suit. The armor left by the sea god, cast from enchanted end metal, has extremely strong protection. Do you want to receive it? Aquaman's golden armor. Because it belongs to a special location, the degree of danger is not high, so the rewards obtained are far less than the rewards on Godzilla's head. In fact, it is not easy to check in Atlantis. If Han Xiaoqing did not have the physique of Aquaman, Han Xiaoqing would not be able to withstand the strong pressure of the deep sea. Without Godzilla leading the way, it would be difficult for him to find Atlantis under the sea. However, the reward is equivalent to a free gift, so Han Xiaoqing naturally accepted it happily. Receive. After the words fell, a set of gleaming golden armor was attached to Han Xiaoqing's body out of thin air, which was so luxurious that he was exposed to the sight of other Atlanteans. People rely on clothes and horses rely on saddles. After putting on the golden battle suit, Han Xiaoqing's overall image immediately went up to a higher level. It is true that gold shines everywhere. No, even at the bottom of the tens of thousands of feet deep sea, it couldn't hide the golden light of the golden battle suit. Attracted by the golden light, the surrounding Atlanteans looked at Godzilla's back. A blue-skinned Atlantean pointed to where Han Xiaoqing was. There is actually someone behind the patron saint. Who can actually stand on the back of Lord Patronus? An old Atlantean looked up, surprised. Ancient behemoths like Godzilla have existed longer than the history of the Atlantis Empire. From ancient times to the present, even the legendary Poseidon has never surrendered to Godzilla. Godzilla and Atlantis belong to a mutually beneficial relationship. Before the continent of Atlantis sank, Godzilla protected Atlantis from the persecution of other titans. As a condition, the Atlantis Empire will provide Godzilla with the required nuclear radiation energy as a sacrifice to Godzilla. To put it bluntly, it is to pay protection fees. This has become an unchanging tradition in Atlantis for thousands of years. After the sinking of the continent of Atlantis, many deep-sea behemoths were attacked in the deep sea. Most of them were Godzilla who stepped forward to help Atlantis, otherwise Atlantis would not be able to continue to date. As the so-called king of flowing water, Godzilla of iron. In the Atlantis Empire, Godzilla's status is extremely lofty and worshipped, and his status is even higher than that of the king. He is on par with Poseidon, the god of the sea, and is the well-deserved patron saint of Atlantis. How can these Atlanteans not be surprised that someone is standing on their patron saint now? One of the Atlanteans had sharp eyes, saw Han Xiaoqing's complexion clearly from a distance, and was even more surprised. The flesh-colored skin is from the earth. Another guard with a 5-pronged spear in his hand said in surprise, "A man on the ground. How could a man on the ground come to the deep sea without using tools, and is he holding a golden trident in his hand?" The old Atlantean said, "Have you forgotten His Majesty the King? Could it be that he's also of mixed blood? For the mixed race Neptune Namor, most Atlanteans actually have some complaints, but they dare not express it. Could it be the offspring of that person in the legend?" The complexion of an old Atlantean changed slightly. "You mean usurper? I'm afraid that the visitor is not good, so hurry up and inform the king and the high priest." After a riot among the Atlanteans, someone immediately went to report the situation. Usurper. Hearing these Atlantean talk, Han Xiaoqing was a little puzzled. But judging from the eyes of the people around, most of them were hostile. If there is no Godzilla, these Atlanteans will definitely rush to arrest him as an illegal immigrant. But due to the existence of Godzilla, they dare not show their weapons directly, which is disrespectful to the patron saint. Godzilla is the patron saint of Atlantis, but also a powerful destroyer. No one can afford the consequences of angering Godzilla. While these Atlanteans were observing Han Xiaoqing was also looking at these Atlanteans. The appearance of these people is similar to that of humans, with light blue or dark blue skin and gorgeous clothes. Even ordinary Atlanteans have decorations such as pearls and gems, and a small number of people have fish scales on their bodies. Most of the men were wearing armor, holding harpoon-like weapons, and some holding strange-looking guns, which should be some kind of energy weapons. Others wear luxurious gowns and ride various sea creatures. These marine creatures are relatively huge, such as a 3-meter-long seahorse, a 5-meter-long peepee shrimp, a 7-8-meter-long crab, and a sea turtle. I don't know if these sea creatures were originally like this, or the result of the transformation of the Atlanteans. The king is coming. Not long after, surrounded by the Atlanteans, a black-haired man wearing black armor and holding a golden trident appeared on the stage riding a 23-meter-long mosasaurus. His trident is the same style as the trident in Han Xiaoqing's hand, and it is also shiny golden, but the handle is spiral and the end is flat. The trident in Han Xiaoqing's hand has a round handle and a triangular barb at the end. From the appearance of the opponent and the names of the surrounding Atlanteans, it is not difficult to judge that this person with a white complexion is the Marvel Aquaman Namor Mackenzie. As for his Mount Mosasaur, it should have been an extinct species. I don't know where Namor found it. Han Xiaoqing was not surprised by this. After all, Godzilla exists, and the appearance of Mosasaur is nothing. This Mosasaurus has obviously been tamed, with a saddle and a rein on its body. It looks mighty and domineering, but compared with Godzilla, it is insignificant. The two sea kings looked at each other from a distance, and in an instant, it seemed that an invisible electric current flashed through their eyes. This is a formidable enemy. It is also an opponent in fate. This feeling seemed to come from instinct. The moment they met, Han Xiaoqing and Namor felt the same feeling at the same time. Some are like relatives whom we haven't seen for many years, with natural hostility. This feeling is very mysterious. Namor, standing on the back of the mosasaur, spoke first. "It's really unexpected that we will meet in this way. It seems that you are ready to challenge the throne, right? My cousin, Amoki." Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. Who is Amok? Hearing Namor's words, Han Xiaoqing was at a loss and was a little confused about the situation. The other party obviously misunderstood something. But Han Xiaoqing did not explain, and opened his mouth and said, "Emoji is dead, my name is Han Xiaoqing, if you want to fight, then I will accompany you to the end. In that case, come on." Namor has a bad temper, is outspoken, and likes to fight. He puts the interests of Atlantis first in everything and is very defensive. "I belong to the kind of ruthless person who if someone kills me, I will destroy the whole family." More than 20 years ago, Namor's uncle Grand, dissatisfied with Namor's rule, launched a large-scale rebellion when Namor was away, and was finally defeated and expelled by Namor, who drove back. Grand was unwilling, but he knew that he could not defeat Namor, so he chose to go ashore, hoping to learn from Namor's mother, combine with humans, and give birth to a powerful hybrid. It is rumored that Grand arrived in Asia and gave birth to a son with an Asian, named Amoki. This incident was considered a relatively famous gossip news in Atlantis. After all, Namor's strength is obvious to all. Although mixed blood is rejected by many traditional Atlanteans, Namor's strength is obvious to all. Therefore, many people want to try to combine with the land people, but the ordinary Atlanteans are not acclimatized when they go ashore, and they are powerless. If the people on the ground are snatched back, the people on the ground will also be dissatisfied. Only those royal bloodlines that are stronger can live longer on land, but there are not many royal bloodlines, most of them are relatively conservative, and they are easy to be poked in the back. Therefore, the relationship between Atlanteans and humans on land, there are only a handful of people of mixed race. It is reasonable for Han Xiaoqing to be mistaken by Namor for a Mogi. Han Xiaoqing didn't know the old stories of Atlantis. He didn't read many Marvel comics, not to mention that comics are comics after all, and it is impossible to cover everything. This is a real world where everyone has flesh and blood, their own thoughts and past. This gave Han Xiaoqing an entry point. He was worrying about his identity as a black householder, but fortunately he was wrong. Anyway, he never admitted that he was a Moki, and it was all the other side's imagination. Now he was thinking about his duel with Namor. Could he win? To be honest, Han Xiaoqing was not sure. With the physique of Neptune, Han Xiaoqing thought that his strength and ability were no worse than Namor. Konamo is at least 40 years old now, and has been the king of Atlantis for at least 20 years. He has lived in the deep sea all year round and has grown up to this day. He has experienced countless battles and accumulated rich combat experience. On the other hand, Han Xiaoqing has only acquired the ability of Neptune not long ago, and his own combat experience is pitiful, and he can't even play with the trident in his hand. Comparing the two, Han Xiaoqing obviously does not take advantage. But what about that? Just do it if you don't accept it, whoever loves you is a fool. A sacrificial offering to the Patronus. Namor was very decisive. Seeing that Han Xiaoqing agreed to the challenge, he immediately ordered his men to provide Godzilla with nuclear materials, and then looked at Han Xiaoqing. As for you, we are in the duel field, and we will use the ancient method to decide the outcome. Okay. Han Xiaoqing did not show weakness, and held the trident with fighting spirit. Immediately, I saw several Atlanteans driving 5 giant octopuses and carrying more than a dozen exquisite pot-shaped objects in front of Godzilla. Each jar is more than 5 meters high and weighs several tons. After putting the things down, the Atlanteans drove the octopus away in a hurry. Because these barrels are filled with dangerous nuclear waste. Atlantis is technologically advanced, inspired by the titanic beasts like Godzilla, and mastered nuclear technology 20,000 years ago. Over the years, Atlantis has developed more advanced and pollution-free new energy sources, but in order to sacrifice to Godzilla, the original nuclear power plant has not been dismantled. On the one hand, nuclear power plants can provide energy for Atlantis. On the one hand, Godzilla can be fed, the best of both worlds. It can be said to make the best use of everything. Second brother, don't worry, I'll eat first. Big brother, call me if you need something. After seeing the neatly arranged nuclear waste, Godzilla was refreshed and successfully awakened into a dry meal beast. After the voice of his heart came out, he began to eat. The scattered nuclear radiation is absorbed by him and will not spread too far. But if you get too close, there is still a certain risk. Not everyone has the perverted physique of Godzilla, and nuclear radiation is very harmful. Even if Han Xiaoqing has the physique of Aquaman, he is unwilling to get too close, and immediately jumps away from Godzilla's dorsal fin with the trident on his shoulder. Elder brother, take your time, I'll fight Namor first. After saying that, Han Xiaoqing came to the edge of the platform, and with a thought, he controlled a killer whale to swim out of the platform, jumped up, drove the killer whale, and followed Namor to the duel field. The duel field is in the ruins of the old city of Atlantis. After a period of preparation, many Atlanteans gathered here, ready to watch the Battle of Kings. In the lounge, only Han Xiaoqing and Namor were left. From the appearance point of view, except for some differences in skin color, the two are more alike. At least compared to those blue-skinned Atlanteans, the two of them looked more like brothers standing together. The lifespan of Atlanteans is relatively long, and Namor has perfectly inherited the advantages of Atlanteans. Although he is 42 years old, he looks about 27 or 20 on the outside, a little taller than Han Xiaoqing. Looking at Han Xiaoqing's eyes were a little complicated. There has always been a legend among us that Godzilla is the king of monsters. Even Poseidon, the sea god, has never surrendered him. Whoever can truly surrender him will become the master of this world. Atlantis Sea needs this power. Relying on him, Atlantis can conquer the world, both above and below ground. Han Xiaoqing heard the words and looked at Namor. So, what do you want to express? You know what, your father is an idiot, but I don't want to kill you, Amoki, or Han Xiaoqing. Now I will give you one last chance. Leave Atlantis and never come back. This duel it cannot be won. Have to try. Holding the trident in his hand, Han Xiaoqing exchanged a glance with Namor, with flames shining in his eyes. Because they all know that there can only be one Neptune. Boom boom boom. A burst of war drums sounded, and the portal of the duel field opened, and the two swam from the opened portal to the duel field. The duel field maintains the most primitive style of Atlantis, a bit like the ancient Roman arena, surrounded by some broken stone pillars and huge statues, and the edge is a ring-shaped stand. Thousands of Atlanteans gathered here to witness this battle of kings. Namor raised his trident and shouted to the surrounding audience, "People of Atlantis, tell this usurper's son, who is your king, long live the king. Long live the king. Long live the king. Defeat the offspring of this usurper. Traitor, get out of Atlantis." Namor's voice fell, and the surrounding Atlanteans boiled up, shouting and cheering for Namor. Some people spoke harsh words to Han Xiaoqing, as if he had done something outrageous. It seems that the identity of the impostor is not very popular. As soon as he showed up, he was pointed out by thousands of people. Han Xiaoqing, who was lying on the gun for no reason, could only admit it, who asked him to impersonate him. If you want to wear a crown, you must bear its weight. To get something, you have to give something. In the history of Atlantis, there have been 5 battles between kings, the most recent of which was the confrontation between Namor and Grand more than 20 years ago. Although Atlantis has many good traditions, sometimes these traditions seem to be child's play. The king's alternation of power is resolved through the most primitive force, which itself has a big problem. It seems that the same is true for Wakanda. Although it has advanced technology, it still advocates primitive collisions. For Han Xiaoqing, this is an opportunity to reach the sky in one step, provided that Namor must be defeated. After the two appeared, a holographic image appeared in midair, broadcasting their identities. Han Xiaoqing, Amoki, son of grandson of King Thacker. Namor, the son of Queen Finn, the current king of Atlantis. In the eyes of outsiders, both of them have the royal blood of Atlantis and are also of mixed blood. If Namor wins, he will stabilize his own power. Most people are not optimistic about Han Xiaoqing, but if Han Xiaoqing wins, they will still follow the tradition and regard him as the new king of Atlantis. Of course, it is unknown how many will obey the law. At the same time, when Han Xiaoqing stepped onto the duel field, a reminder came from the check-in system. Ding! The host is currently located in the ancient duel arena for sacrifices in Atlantis, and meets the check-in conditions. Do you want to check in? Hearing the system prompt, Han Xiaoqing secretly said, "If you really doze off, you will get a pillow and check in." Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, 7, 3, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting the fighting skills of Death Knell and proficiency in all types of weapons. Fighting skills. Deathstroke is a very powerful opponent. He can even defeat Batman and Nightwing in hand-to-hand combat. He is also a master tactician. Proficiency in all types of weapons. Deathstroke is proficient in the use of various weapons, including pistols, rifles, cold weapons, knives, guns, swords, and halberds, and can give full play to the advantages of each weapon. Do you want to receive it? Needless to say, I will definitely receive it. With a thought, he chose to receive it, and a wave of information immediately entered Han Xiaoqing's mind. Then Han Xiaoqing found a memory about fighting skills, and, using various weapons, emerged in his mind, as if he had rehearsed it countless times in his mind, and even integrated it into his own muscle memory, allowing Han Xiaoqing to instantly comprehend it. The essence of Namor, who was standing opposite Han Xiaoqing, took a look at Han Xiaoqing, and seemed to feel that the person in front of him seemed different at the moment just now. Boom 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 boom. At the edge of the duel field, a big octopus waved its tentacles and beat the drum rhythmically. Han Xiaoqing took a look at Brother Squid, who was beating the drum to cheer, and felt that this scene was very similar to the King's duel in the DC Aquaman movie version. It's just that the combatants have become him and Namor. Under the auspices of the High Priest, the duel officially began. When the two golden tridents collided together, and the sound spread, causing the surrounding water to turbulent endlessly. Where did you get the counterfeit? Although it is very powerful, the counterfeit is just a counterfeit after all. After the collision, Namor found that the trident in the opponent's hand also possessed divine power, which felt a bit unbelievable. As far as he knew, there was only one Neptune's trident. The one in his hand was the real one, and the one in the opponent's hand was definitely a counterfeit, but it was definitely beyond the reach of ordinary people to achieve such a level of counterfeit. How can you be sure that the trident in your hand is not an imitation? Naturally, Han Xiaoqing would not tell Namor that the trident in his hand came from another world, and at the same time wanted to use this to undermine the opponent's self-confidence. Whether it is true or not, you will know in one battle. Namor has been through the battlefield for a long time. How could his belief be shaken by a few words? He turned the trident, jumped up, held the handle with both hands, and slashed down on Han Xiaoqing's head. Han Xiaoqing's feet sank. He stabbed up with the halberd in both hands, and used the hook to block Namor's heavy blow. The moment the two halberds collided, a shock wave was set off immediately, and the water wave spread to the audience along with the shock wave, making the Atlanteans around watching the battle suffocate. Catch! The ground under Han Xiaoqing's feet burst into cracks due to the heavy pressure, but Han Xiaoqing's arms just bent slightly and sank, and then he rose from the ground, and with the help of the counter-shock force, Namor was thrown out in one fell swoop. After the first round of collision, both sides have their own strengths. Generally speaking, Han Xiaoqing's strength is stronger, while Namor's speed is faster. As for skills, Han Xiaoqing, who has acquired the Death Knell fighting ability, and Namor are almost the same in the case of fighting with a trident. Murderous aura permeated the arena, quietly, like the calm before the storm. The Atlanteans on the viewing platform fell into silence, and then thunderous cheers broke out. Although they didn't know Han Xiaoqing well and were somewhat repelled by him, it didn't prevent them from cheering for a wonderful duel. The strong win respect there. At this moment, Han Xiaoqing gained the approval of some Atlanteans by relying on his strength. It seems that I underestimated you, and I will not show mercy next time. After being lifted 25.8 meters, Namor stabilized his body, and then quickly rushed towards Han Xiaoqing. The trident in his hand tore through the surrounding water, so fast that it caused a sonic boom in the water. When approaching the position of 10 meters, Namor swung the trident in his hand to the full moon, and the force between the swings was overwhelming. In an instant, the water in front of him seemed to turn into a crescent-shaped high-pressure water cannon and killed Han Xiaoqing. Well done. Han Xiaoqing swept out the trident in his hand, and a horrified horde passed by, with the potential to sweep away thousands of troops. Boom! The two water blades collided fiercely, and the moment they intersected, it was like a turbulent wave hitting the shore, stirring up a turbulent current. Under the impact of the violent current, many Atlanteans were blown away. Seeing this, Han Xiaoqing said, "It seems that the battlefield here is too small. How about fighting in another place with me? It's exactly what I want. I haven't met an opponent like you for a long time, so let's have a good fight." Namor cared about the safety of his clansmen, and knew that if the two of them continued to fight here, some clansmen might be killed by the aftermath of the battle, so he immediately nodded in agreement. The fighting spirit in Namor's eyes is now high, and the look he looks at Han Xiaoqing becomes serious. He has a fiery temper and loves fighting. But in the past 20 years, he has been able to do everything for nothing, but he can't find an opponent who makes him fight hard. The appearance of Han Xiaoqing made Namor happy to see Lai Xin, and even gave birth to some sense of identity, as if seeing himself when he was young. Whoosh, whoosh. The physique of both of them is far superior to that of ordinary Atlanteans, and they swim extremely fast. Swim to the sea. At this time, Han Xiaoqing's heart was also extremely excited. The exciting battle made his blood boil, and his spirit was both nervous and happy. Seeing that Namor and Han Xiaoqing did not take them to play, some Atlanteans immediately left the duel arena and chased after them in underwater spaceships, watching from afar. Such a battle is rare in 100 years, so they naturally don't want to miss it. Han Xiaoqing and Namor stayed about 100 meters away from the sea surface, slashing horizontally and vertically with the trident in their hands, picking, poking, teasing, and stabbing from time to time. Each blow was enough to break mountains and crack rocks. The surrounding water rolled endlessly under the aftermath of the battle between the two, causing huge waves more than 10 meters high to rise on the sea level. Fortunately, this place is far away from the iceberg, and the survivors of the Titanic have been rescued. If they slow down, the people like Rusi and Xiaoli will definitely be wiped out. Han Xiaoqing, who had hit the rising tide, had completely forgotten about this matter. Fighting fiercely with Namor was like two dragons fighting against each other in the water. The same physique, the same ability, the same weapon, the fight was indistinguishable for a while. The halberd came and went, and the trident whizzed past the two of them. If you didn't pay attention, you might become the dead soul of the opponent's men. It was extremely thrilling. Dang dang dang. For a while, the sound of clanging was endless, as if even this water area was about to be blown up. The scene of the fierce battle shocked the people of Atlantis, who were eating melons in the distance, and there was nothing but shock in their hearts. Chapter 11. After a round of fierce confrontation, Namor, who didn't get a bargain, quickly launched the next wave of offensive. Just a few rounds of head-to-head confrontation, because his strength was inferior, he suffered a little bit of a loss. His hands were numb, and the hand holding the trident trembled slightly. He knew that his strength was at a disadvantage, and he couldn't fight any longer. He immediately used his speed advantage to start a guerrilla attack, and occasionally used the trident to shoot a few energy bombs from a distance. The power of these energy bombs is not weaker than that of rocket launchers, and they have extremely strong impact. In fact, the trident in Han Xiaoqing's hand also has this function, but he just got it not long ago, and he still doesn't know how to use it. Facing Namor's long-range attack, Han Xiaoqing could only dodge and resist with a trident. He wanted to get close several times, but Namor avoided him with his speed advantage. It seems that you haven't controlled the power of the trident, or your imitation does not have such ability, am I right? Cousin. Namor kept moving. The trident in his hand was like a mobile turret, outputting continuously. One after another energy bombs were fired out as if they were free of money. In the hail of bullets, Han Xiaoqing dodged from left to right, but couldn't dodge it, so he used his trident to resist. Although the concussion power guaranteed by the energy bullets was not enough to kill, it was definitely not a good feeling to be shot. Namor, you just have to do something. Don't you even have the courage to fight me in close quarters? Han Xiaoqing threatened. But Namor didn't take it seriously. This is a king's duel, not a child's play. Admit defeat now, and I can spare your life. As a king, Namor's temper is a bit hot, but he is not stupid. With his own strengths, he overcomes the enemy's weaknesses, which is the quality of a qualified fighter. It's the behavior of a reckless man to fight recklessly. Han Xiaoqing was a little helpless, and immediately waved the trident, mobilizing the water flow as a weapon to attack Namor. Papa said that only magic can beat magic. Han Xiaoqing has not yet mastered the means of energy bombs, but Neptune Trident can mobilize the power of the ocean. After a fight, Han Xiaoqing has triggered and controlled the ability to control water. The water flow rolled, forming a spiral water column, from bottom to top, sweeping towards Namor with a suction force. It's useless. Namor held the trident and stood in front of him. The trident flashed a burst of golden light, and the turbulent sea was instantly subdued. Laugh. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Han Xiaoqing sprinted with all his strength, turned into a phantom and went upstream, but in the blink of an eye, the trident in his hand pierced Namor's chest like a heavy cannon. Namor held the halberd in both hands and blocked it with the handle of the trident. Due to the power to drive 3 points, Han Xiaoqing continued to rise against it, and finally broke through the ice. Wow! The two broke through the ice and flew into the air. When they reached Gaodan, which was more than 50 meters away, the momentum of Han Xiaoqing and Namor slowed down and they began to fall. Only Han Xiaoqing could land on the ground, and Namor flew in the air with the small wings on his feet. The small fin-shaped wings at Namor's ankle joints are like decorations on children's shoes. It is simply unscientific that such small wings can drive a person to fly. However, the Marvel world is not a purely technological world, and has many supernatural powers, so Han Xiaoqing didn't make a fuss. Seeing Namor in flight, Han Xiaoqing knew that the way Sea King Arthur defeated his younger brother Ocean Lord would not work on Namor. First of all, Namor's overall strength is stronger than that of Ocean Lord, and the trident in his hand is genuine, which can control water, release energy bombs, create lightning and so on. Secondly, Namor has the ability to fly, and can fly out of water. But Han Xiaoqing does not have the ability to fly. Compared with being in the water, Namor has a greater advantage after going ashore. Unless Han Xiaoqing can drag Namor on the shore until he runs out of oxygen, it's basically useless. Namor is of mixed race. The setting in the Marvel comics is that his strength will weaken after leaving the water for an hour. If he stays on water and land for too long, he will suffer from hypoxia, causing Namor to become manic, depressed, and mood swings. If there is no water contact at all for more than a week, it will be fatal. I don't know if this setting will work for Namor in this world. Namor didn't know what Han Xiaoqing was thinking. He flew in midair, raised his trident and shot down a few energy rays. Han Xiaoqing held up the trident, aroused the divine power in it, and formed an energy shield to block the attack. After offsetting the attack, the energy shield did not break, but the ice cubes under his feet were shaken to pieces. Rise. Han Xiaoqing controlled the seawater to stabilize his figure, waved the trident, rolled up a waterspout and rushed towards Namor in midair, but was easily avoided by Namor. Namor flew down, the trident swept down from the sky, and smashed down with a force of 10,000 catties. Han Xiaoqing waved his halberd to resist, and in an instant, under the huge force, the two were tied, but Han Xiaoqing had no time to control the water flow under Han Xiaoqing. When he was weightless, he was kicked in the abdomen by Namor, and his whole body flew horizontally and hit him within 100 meters, on an iceberg outside. The strong impact caused Han Xiaoqing's abdomen to cramp, and half of his body collapsed into an iceberg. Just as Han Xiaoqing backed away several tons of ice, he saw Namor standing in the air holding his trident high. The sky was dark clouds churning, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Boom! Thunder roared, and a huge red-white lightning fell from the sky. Han Xiaoqing was unable to dodge, and was struck by lightning, and a powerful electric current permeated his whole body. Fortunately, the trident and the golden battle suit withstood most of the damage, but even so, Han Xiaoqing was still screaming from the electricity, and his black hair was shocked. Instant noodle head, emitting white smoke. It seems that I can't really fight, bullying me has no magic output. Boom! The dark clouds in the sky turned sharply, and red-white lightning struck down again. Han Xiaoqing had no choice but to use his energy shield to resist and was beaten passively. At this moment, Namor changed from a warrior to a mage, and continued to output from a long distance, making the drifting glacier riddled with holes. Everyone has their place, and you shouldn't be in Atlantis. Namor might be absorbing less oxygen. This person is a little nervous, like a hot-blooded middle school boy, not only outputting magic, but also starting to output words. If you defend for a long time, you will lose. After resisting several attacks, Han Xiaoqing changed his strategy and plunged into the sea. Since you have arrived in Atlantis, you should pay the price for your reckless behavior. While speaking, Namor also plunged into the sea, and at the same time controlled the surrounding sharks to attack Han Xiaoqing. You're getting old, don't be so hot-blooded, okay. A burst of golden light burst out from Han Xiaoqing's eyes, and the sharks swarming around suddenly turned into a group of good babies. You can also control marine life. It seems that he really succeeded. Kneel down now, and I can accept your surrender. Namor felt that the abilities of the cousin in front of him were too similar to his own, they were almost exactly the same. At the moment when Namor was intoxicated with himself, Han Xiaoqing got close and stabbed him with a fork. The king must not be humiliated. Even if I don't know magic, I, Han Xiaoqing, are invincible in the world. I can't fight, pretend to be the first. After spending so long on the internet, who still can't say a few words. Saying, the king must not be humiliated, Han Xiaoqing swung his fork, and Namor swung his halberd to resist. During the stalemate, Han Xiaoqing raised the halberd, opening Namor's empty door, kicked Namor's lower abdomen, kicked him out, and then rolled the trident in his hand, flying Namor's trident. But without waiting for Han Xiaoqing to do it, the trident seemed to have spirituality, and it automatically returned to Namor's hand. Your melee combat ability is indeed very strong, but I will not give you another chance to melee. Namor touched his blue belly, holding the trident as a gatling, and the dense energy bombs shot towards Han Xiaoqing. Facing Namor, who doesn't talk about martial arts, Han Xiaoqing had no choice but to hide and was chased and beaten by Namor. Such a situation is obviously not good for him. In desperation, Han Xiaoqing had to use telepathy to communicate with Godzilla. "Brother, save me." Godzilla, who slept after eating, heard Han Xiaoqing's call, looked up, blinked his eyes, and then swam. "Roar, don't hurt my brother." Godzilla roared and swam towards Han Xiaoqing. Other Atlanteans couldn't understand what Godzilla wanted to express, but Han Xiaoqing and Namor knew it clearly. Soon Han Xiaoqing joined Godzilla, and Namor stopped when he saw Godzilla coming forward. "Master Patronus, we are holding a king's duel, I hope you will not intervene." Namor can also communicate with marine life, and Godzilla is not a problem. Godzilla thought, "This is my half-brother, can you bully me?" "God TM's half-brother." Namor's expression was gloomy. "You must protect him. Are you not convinced? Even if your grandpa sees me, he has to be polite. Seeing how disrespectful you are, you still want to hit me. Try to move me. It's not big or small. Brother, ignore him, let's go." Godzilla was very proud. After speaking, regardless of Namor's reaction, he left with the slightly embarrassed Han Xiaoqing. The Atlanteans in the distance felt a little unsatisfied when they saw that the battle ended without a problem, but they didn't dare to stop Godzilla. They could only watch helplessly as one person and one beast left. "Thank you for your help, brother, I was careless." Resting against Godzilla's dorsal fin, Han Xiaoqing's originally inflated mind became more at ease. The sudden power made Han Xiaoqing a little flustered. After this battle, he realized that relying on the power of Neptune alone was not enough. In the Marvel world, Namor Neptune can only be regarded as a middle level, which is insufficient compared to the top and more than the bottom. Perhaps it is already considered a strong existence on the Earth, but looking at the universe, it is not enough. But such Namor can suppress himself in battle, which shows that he still has a long way to go. Thinking of this, Han Xiaoqing looked at Godzilla, who was swimming towards the deep sea, and asked, "Brother, where are you going?" "Go back to the inner world to sleep," Godzilla said as a matter of course. As a fat man, his life is very monotonous, eating, sleeping, and fighting monsters. "Now that I am full and have no monsters to fight, I can only sleep to pass the boring time." The world in the center of the Earth. Han Xiaoqing is still quite curious about the world in the center of the Earth, mainly to see if he can check in the world in the center of the Earth. Knowing the taste by eating marrow, there is a check-in system that is not used, and you still want to work hard on your own, that is the biggest waste. As for the world in the center of the Earth, Han Xiaoqing has some understanding. Before time travel, he just watched the movie, Godzilla vs. King Kong. In the setting of the monster universe, the Earth core world is located deep in the core of the Earth, with a strange geological environment, and it is the origin of all monsters in the monster universe except space monsters. There are many passages connecting the Earth's core world. In order to hunt down the destroyers among the monsters, Godzilla often takes shortcuts through the passages of the Earth's core world, going from one end of the world to the other. Because the channel connects the Earth core world, the gravity will change in the channel, so the channel leading to the Earth core world is also called the anti-gravity channel. The anti-gravity channel is usually very hidden, and the channel has a huge space, connecting the two worlds of the center of the Earth and the surface of the Earth. In the movie Godzilla vs. King Kong, Godzilla used his atomic breath to spray directly into the center of the Earth, and made an appointment with King Kong. This had to make Han Xiaoqing wonder whether these anti-gravity channels were ejected one by Godzilla for convenience. Given Godzilla's intelligence and abilities, the odds are high. Just thinking of this, Godzilla has come to the anti-gravity channel in the Atlantic Ocean. This passage is very large, with a width of 300 to 400 meters. It extends straight down and is bottomless. Even with Han Xiaoqing's enhanced vision, the end cannot be seen. Because in the ocean, the channel was filled with seawater, and Godzilla began to dive. Han Xiaoqing was riding a hitchhiker, and didn't feel it at first, but after reaching a certain distance, the passage seemed to lose gravity. Godzilla's speed suddenly accelerated to a terrifying level, and the scene in front of him quickly reversed, as if entering a time-space passage. After Godzilla sprinted for 5 or 6 minutes, the gravity in the tunnel changed again, as if there were two pulling forces, which gradually slowed down Godzilla's speed. Han Xiaoqing felt his body being torn apart by an invisible force. Fortunately, his physique was strong enough, otherwise he might be torn apart by this force. After advancing a certain distance, the tearing force weakened, and then there was a sense of weightlessness. Not long after, Godzilla and Han Xiaoqing surfaced. Logically speaking, under the strong pressure of the deep sea, the water should flow into the inner world like a high-pressure water gun, but because of the reversal of gravity, the water flow will be absorbed here. Perhaps the gravity is different, and the gravity on the side of the channel is lower, so after Godzilla and Han Xiaoqing came out of the water, they felt very little gravity. Godzilla's limbs climbed on the stone wall and moved forward quickly. When they entered the tunnel, they were head down, but when they got to the side of the tunnel, they seemed to turn their heads around, and turned their heads up when they came out. It is not accurate to say that it is upward. After leaving the entrance of the cave, Godzilla and Han Xiaoqing fell freely downward. Han Xiaoqing grasped the trident with one hand, firmly grasped a gap in Godzilla's dorsal fin with the other, and fell with Godzilla. However, the speed of the fall was not fast, and the body seemed to be very light. Due to the peculiar geographical structure, the underground world still maintains the most primitive environment, which is divided into upper and lower edges, with the atmosphere in the middle. There are strangely shaped plants growing everywhere on the upper and lower edges, and the sky and the earth are indistinguishable. It's like two mountains. Both the upper and lower edges are mountain structures, and the flowing lava in some areas brings light to the underground world, full of ancient and mysterious atmosphere. Hiss! Godzilla and Han Xiaoqing went out of the upper edge and fell to the lower edge. The place where they landed was the territory of the flying snake, Nuozuki. Nuozuki is a huge titan snake. The adult Nuozuki can reach 130 meters in length. Its shape is similar to the Tang snake in ancient Chinese mythology. There are two red membranes on the upper part of its body. Wings that extend down the upper body. This pair of wings endows Nozuki with the ability to fly, allowing it to move quickly over terrain with huge drop-offs. Perhaps a long time ago, Nuozuki escaped from the inner world of the earth, was discovered and recorded by people on the surface, so it is unknown whether there are legends left behind. Monsters like Nuozuki are very aggressive, but after seeing that the uninvited guest was Godzilla, these Nuozuki decisively admitted their cowardice and left consciously. In the inner world, Godzilla is the well-deserved king of monsters. Nuozuki may be fierce, but when facing Godzilla, he decisively admits his cowardice and runs away. Because of Godzilla's strength and body structure, for Nozuki, it was simply a complete suppression. As a giant titan snake, Nuozuki's attack method is similar to that of a giant python, mainly relying on wrapping its body around its prey, wrapping its prey with its wings, suffocating it to death, or swallowing it alive. But these attack methods are completely ineffective against Godzilla. Godzilla's dorsal fin is like a sharp sword. If Nozuki wants to entangle Godzilla and strangle him to death, it is tantamount to hanging on the southeast branch. Secondly, Godzilla's defense is extremely strong, and Nozuki's fangs are difficult to break through. Nozuki's strongest attacks are nearly ineffective against Godzilla. Godzilla, on the other hand, has a huge body, thick skin, infinite strength, and powerful long-range attack skills such as atomic breath. There are only a handful of monsters that can suppress Godzilla, but Nozuki is definitely not among them. Maybe there have been monsters in the inner world who dared to challenge the president, but these monsters were either physically influenced by the president, or superseded by the president. The boss of the society, tyranny of all kinds of dissatisfaction. For a giant snake like Nuozuki, it's okay not to mess with Godzilla, but it really angered the boss, and it turned into a spicy stick in minutes. Seeing the Nuozuki flying away, Han Xiaoqing just looked at them curiously and then looked away. Jumping off Godzilla's huge back, when Han Xiaoqing's feet touched the lower edge of the ground, he didn't hear the system prompt. It seems that some specific places are needed. Thinking of this, Han Xiaoqing looked at Godzilla. Brother, do you know where the Titans live in the inner world? I know, if you want to go, I'll take you there. When it comes to the King Kong family, Godzilla seems very upset, but he still walks into the distance. Han Xiaoqing jumped onto Godzilla's tail, found a relatively comfortable position to lie flat, and pillowed the trident under his head, telepathically said, "Brother seems to be dissatisfied with the King Kong family, can you tell me?" Godzilla opened the chatter box, thinking, in ancient times, King Kong and our Godzilla clan were both in the Guardian camp, but the relationship with each other was not good, and no one obeyed the other. It was nothing at first, but those nasty monkey cubs actually decided to use Godzilla's dorsal fins as weapons, and hunted and killed one of my elders of the same clan by beating them. So a great war broke out between the Godzilla family and the King Kong family. Although these monkey cubs are not as powerful as our Godzilla, they are superior in number and have created weapons to restrain us. After a hard battle, my ancestors let's beat these monkey cubs. Later, the King Kong family was afraid of being driven out to extinction, so they moved with their families, and used Titan technology to strip off a continent and escape from the inner world of the Earth, and then disappeared. About thousands of years ago, I wandered away from the surface world and found an island suitable for living. The people there regarded me as a god. Then I met King Kong. I was defeated and driven out of the island by King Kong. Later, when I grew up, I wanted to go back for revenge, but found that the island was drifting away with the ocean currents. I don't know if King Kong on it is still alive. Godzilla's tone was a little somber and regretful. Can beat you, big brother, is that King Kong really that powerful? Han Xiaoqing quickly thought of the plot of King Kong Skull Island. The island in Godzilla's mouth should be Skull Island. I'm afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight, even if it's a one-on-two fight, I won't lose. Godzilla said unconvinced. Han Xiaoqing asked suspiciously, then why were you kicked out of the island? There are 3 of them. Speaking of this, Godzilla got angry and stomped his feet, shaking up many huge hermit crabs. Han Xiaoqing smiled when he heard the words. It seemed that brother was still brooding about being defeated by King Kong. I couldn't help but mourn for 3 seconds for the pretty boy on Skull Island. Calculating the time, it is now 1962, and the plot of King Kong Skull Island took place in 1973, a difference of 11 years. Logically speaking, Liangzi is probably still in his infancy, his height should be less than 30 meters, his parents are dead, and he has become the only child of the King Kong clan. However, the timeline of this world is a bit weird. Without seeing it with his own eyes, Han Xiaoqing can't be sure how far King Kong has grown. If you have a chance, you can look for the location of Skull Island, maybe you can check in to get new abilities. While walking and chatting, Han Xiaoqing saw many strange creatures in the inner world of the Earth. For example, the wings of Icarus that appeared in the movie King Kong Skull Island. The wings of Icarus are similar to pterosaurs, smaller in size, with leaf-like wings, and like to live in groups under the cover of woods on the top of the mountain. They are a group of aerial killers, and their long noses contain powerful anesthetic ingredients. Fall vertically from high altitude to attack the prey. For Godzilla, these wings of Icarus are equivalent to mosquitoes, but for ordinary people, the wings of Icarus are monsters that are life-threatening. Perhaps because of the reflection of Neptune's trident and Han Xiaoqing's golden battle suit, several Icarus wings flying in the sky noticed Han Xiaoqing's existence. These wings of Icarus live in the inner world all year round and have never seen human beings. But the biological instinct told him that this thing could be eaten. But also rich in protein. Generally, monsters with a relatively large size dare not provoke Godzilla, but the wings of Icarus are relatively small, with a wingspan of less than 2 meters. To Godzilla, they are a group of bugs. Just like human beings don't pay attention to ants on the ground, under normal circumstances, Godzilla doesn't pay attention to these little things. But Han Xiaoqing couldn't ignore that the beaks of these Icarus wings were so sharp that flying at high speed was enough to dismember the flesh. Han Xiaoqing didn't want to try to use his body to resist the damage, so he got up immediately and swung the trident to kill the blind Icarus wings. Killing a few Icarus wings is like a hornet's nest, and the surrounding Icarus wings swarm. Roar, get off. Seeing this, Godzilla let out a roar. The wings of Icarus, who were originally aggressive, suddenly turned into birds and beasts. Brother, don't worry, there is a big brother covering you, and no beast dares to touch you. Hearing Godzilla's voice, Han Xiaoqing withdrew the trident. Brother is mighty. Ha ha ha, I just like your honesty. Received Han Xiaoqing's praise, Godzilla felt elated, and his steps became a little lighter unconsciously. United States, CIA headquarters. 9 hours after the Titanic sank, most of the survivors had been settled, and some were cooperating with the investigation. After all, hundreds of people died, many of them celebrities and rich people. This is not a trivial matter. Not to mention the extraordinary power involved. People from the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency also stepped in and found Captain Smith to talk to some crew members. The content of their conversation revolved around Han Xiaoqing and Godzilla. In this world, the existence of superhuman powers is no secret. During World War II, superhuman powers from various countries all appeared on stage. The United States has Captain America and Human Torch. There are Red Skull and Blazeman. Europe has werewolves, vampires, wizards. There are thousands of heroes and 10 heroes in China. Island Ninja, Onmyoji. There are also some mutants wandering in various battlefields. The more famous is the undead duo Rogan and Victor brothers. These two brothers were on the European battlefield. From World War I to World War II, their comrades changed a group another batch, only these two brothers can't die every time. Due to the existence of extraordinary abilities, these are not secrets to the high-level officials of various countries. It's just that communication is not developed in this era, and ordinary people know relatively little information. The other side. In the interrogation room, Jack was drawing a sketch in front of a huge drawing board. On the drawing paper is a huge monster floating on the water with its upper body exposed, dragging the broken Titanic with a pair of huge arms. There is a little bit of blue light on his body. On the head of the monster stood a small figure, holding a golden trident, bare upper body, holding a child in his arms, and there were many corpses floating on the water below, and some oceans carrying survivors' biology. I have to say that Jack's painting skills are amazing, and he painted Godzilla and Han Xiaoqing very vividly. Jack had just finished painting and had no time to color it. Ruth, who was waiting outside, quarreled with Carl, who had heard the news. Enough, Carl, we're done. Ruth's tone was very decisive. She had found the true love of her life and did not want to be a victim of marriage. Carl was angry and jealous when he heard this, and said angrily, "What's so good about that poor boy? He can't give you the life you want. Being with him is the life I want." A woman in love is always desperate, and Ruth dares to say no to the rich and powerful for the sake of love. Afraid that Ruth would be hurt, Jack hurried out and exchanged glances with Carl. The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder. Just then, a white uncle in his 40s and a black assistant in his 20s came over. The middle-aged uncle looked at Jack and said politely, "Excuse me, you are Mr. Jack, I want to talk to you, are you free?" Carl looked at the uninvited guest, and when he saw the badge on the other party's chest, he seemed a little apprehensive, gave Jack a vicious look, and whispered in his ear, "You wait, this thing will never end, I will make you regret it." As he spoke, he glanced at Ruth at the side, and found that he was not in the other party's eyes at all, so he secretly clenched his fists and left angrily. Jack looked at the middle-aged uncle in front of him, realized that the person in front of him was an extraordinary person, and asked, "Who are you?" "We are members of the Emperor Organization, this is my business card." The middle-aged uncle handed over a business card, and Jack took a look. It said, "William Bill Landa, a doctor of biology, and a senior advisor to the Emperor Organization." Jack said, "I'm sorry, Dr. Landa, I haven't heard of any imperial organization. I don't know what you want from me." Dr. Landa turned his head to look at the painting in Jack's hand through the window, and said, "We are here for him." Lucy took Jack's hand, stood with Jack, and asked, "Do you know Godzilla?" "Godzilla, is it his name? We have indeed seen it before." Dr. Landa lit his pipe, took a puff, and entered the room with the black assistants, Jack and Ruth. After sitting down, Dr. Landa said, "The Emperor Organization is a global paleontology supernatural anomaly research organization, and has been committed to finding the legendary giant ancient creatures. In 1943, the Laurent I was on was attacked by a mysterious monster, and I was the only survivor of this incident. Afterwards, I started looking for the truth about the mysterious giant beast. As more and more witnesses saw the giant beast appear, the U.S. authorities also began to pay attention. These monsters have existed since ancient times. In ancient times, an asteroid hit the Earth and caused the mass extinction of life in the Permian. At the same time, the radiation concentration on the surface is permanently reduced, and some titanic beasts such as Godzilla enter the unknown area to sleep. In 1945, after the United States dropped the Little Boy atomic bomb on the island country, due to the increase in surface radiation, it awakened a sleeping titan. A group of unknown creatures flew over Hiroshima, and the islanders who witnessed this scene called it the Group of Death. Because wherever they pass, they bring only death. Just when human beings were helpless, he appeared, an ancient creature that existed since ancient times, which is what you call Godzilla. He drove away the crowd of death, but also brought great panic. Dr. Landa paused, took a puff of cigarette, and continued. In 1952, the swarm of death flew over London, and the airflow driven by its wings caused the famous fog event. Godzilla is also chasing and killing the death swarm, but he has been unable to kill it, because the death swarm has a perverted regenerative ability. You can understand that the crowd of death is formed by the fusion of countless individuals, and each individual has an independent life. So unless all the individuals are killed, give them a certain amount of time to recover and regenerate, and recombine into a huge monster. Although Godzilla has killed the death swarm many times, he can't completely kill the death swarm, and then the death swarm will be reborn elsewhere. The crowd of death seems to be always hungry, more like a single-celled organism with only the instinct to eat, either absorbing radiation or on the way to absorb radiation. Theoretically, as long as there is enough nuclear radiation, the size of the death horde can grow to the point where it can cover the sky, and even Godzilla will be difficult to deal with at that time. Hearing this, Jack and Ruth were terrified. They never thought that such terrifying creatures existed in the world. Dr. Landa understood the feelings of the two of them very well. When he deduced this conclusion, he also felt his hands and feet were cold. If the hordes of death are not eliminated in time, it will be a doomsday disaster for mankind. Fortunately, with the tireless pursuit of Godzilla Mumu, the death group has never been able to reach the theoretically terrifying size. 2 years after the incident, our Emperor organization has been tracking the death group, trying to destroy it with a nuclear bomb. Finally on Mondstadt Island, I found Godzilla who was fighting with the hordes of death. So the military used the name of an experimental nuclear explosion to launch a hydrogen bomb called Castle of Applause, trying to wipe out these two monsters in one fell swoop. Ruth was surprised. I didn't expect such a secret to be used in the nuclear test back then, but Godzilla is still alive. Couldn't the nuclear bomb kill him? Yes, the nuclear bomb explosion killed the death crowd, but Godzilla's biological structure is extremely special. After years of research, we found that Godzilla likes nuclear radiation very much. For him, a nuclear explosion is a delicious meal. Speaking of this, Dr. Landa seemed a little excited. Godzilla disappeared after the battle with the hordes of death, and the Earth returned to peace, which is a good thing. But without the monsters, the position of the Emperor organization has become very awkward. For the United States, the Emperor organization has become a tasteless one. Over the years, the US government has received less and less funding, which has led to a large reduction in the personnel of the Emperor organization, and the equipment cannot keep up with the times, and it may be disbanded at any time. But the situation is different now. Godzilla reappeared, rekindling Dr. Landa's hope and enthusiasm. Jack frowned, and looked at Dr. Landa. This should be a secret, why are you telling us this? Dr. Landa said with a smile, because I want to invite you to join the Emperor organization. Only those who have seen the giant beast can understand that the ancient giant beast is not a legend. There are still many secrets waiting for us to discover in this world. Where did the ancient giant beast come from? Come on, what role did it play in the process of human evolution? Don't you want to explore these mysteries? Jack and Ruth looked at each other, really moved. They are just at the age of youth and enthusiasm, with a strong thirst for knowledge. In addition to love, life also needs life and goals. Especially after seeing Godzilla with their own eyes, the two were both terrified and fascinated by such an ancient creature. Since the pursuit of stimulation, then follow through to the end. Moreover, Jack also wants to make a career. He has a very adventurous spirit. Now that the opportunity is in front of him, he certainly wants to give it a go. Landa is someone who has been there. After seeing the two people's emotions, he said seriously, "Tell me about your experience in detail. This is very important to the Emperor's organization and even all human beings." Buttoning a big hat gave Jack and Ruth a sense of mission. The black assistant on the side secretly gave Dr. Landa a thumbs up. It feels like this wave of flickering has stabilized. In fact, Dr. Landa did this, but it was also a helpless move. Today is the period of the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, and the Emperor organization has been unable to produce decent results for a long time. Those capitalists who cannot see the return are naturally unwilling to invest. And the good resources are all divided up by the National Land Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Bureau and other departments. If he didn't run fast, he probably wouldn't even be able to drink the soup. After leaving his contact information, Dr. Landa hurried to look for other survivors, and they all said the same thing. However, most rich people don't care about it, only a few are interested and choose to join the Emperor's organization. Not to mention changes in the outside world. Inner Earth. Along the way, Han Shaoqing was an eye-opener. It's almost here, the ancestral land of the King Kong clan is just ahead. Godzilla's heartfelt voice came, and Han Shaoqing quickly climbed onto Godzilla's shoulders, looked around, and saw a magnificent scene. In front of the plane, there is a towering mountain. From a distance, there seems to be only a thin line between the lower peak and the upper peak. It's as if heaven and earth are connected. It's really spectacular. Seeing this scene, Han Shaoqing couldn't help but think of the myths and legends he had seen before time travel. For example, the female snail fills the sky. According to historical records, Bu San Huang Benji, the water god Gong Gong rebelled and fought with the fire god Zhu Rong. Gong Gong was defeated by Zhu Rong. In a rage, he hit Buzhou Mountain with his head, causing the sky to collapse and the earth to sink, and the water of the Tianhe River poured into the world. Nuwa couldn't bear the suffering of the living beings, so she smelted 5 color stones to mend the sky, folded the feet of the turtle to support the 4 poles, flattened the flood and killed the beasts, so that all spirits could live in peace. I used to listen to fairy tales as if they were stories, but I still felt that there were some unreasonable things. After entering the Earth's core world, Han Shaoqing had a whim. If the person who recorded the female snail mending the sky at that time was in the Earth's core world, then everything seemed much more reasonable. The Earth core world is a spherical inner space, which is located under the surface world, and there are connection points with the surface world, such as Buzhou Mountain, Kunlun Mountain, Chengdu Zaishan, Jianmu and other pillars. If Gong Gong breaks the pillar of Buzhou Mountain, it will inevitably destabilize the world in the center of the Earth. And the water of the Tianhe River is poured into the human world. The premise is that the water must be above the human world. It can be seen that after the collapse of Buzhou Mountain, a huge anti-gravity channel appeared, and a large amount of mountains, rivers, or seawater poured into the inner world through this channel. Coincidentally, in the history of foreign countries, there were also records of the destruction of the world by a great flood. It's just that God saw the evil deeds full of corruption, violence and lawlessness on the earth, and gradually couldn't stand it anymore, so he decided to launch a great flood to cleanse all creatures in the world. There is a good man named Noah, who is the 9th grandson of Seth in the previous article. He behaves in accordance with God's teachings, making God feel that this world is still worth saving, so he issued a decree to ask Noah to build an ark and move everything in the world. All kinds of creatures bring a male and a female to avoid disasters. In the end, they escaped through the ark and re-established order. Is this really just a coincidence? Perhaps this is what happened in the same period, so there are many similarities, but human records are relatively one-sided, and with their own brain-filled plots, they become different fairy tales. If this assumption is true, then the origin of human beings is likely to be in the inner world. According to the Darwinian theory of evolution, apes evolved into apes, and apes evolved into humans. But so far, no fossils have been found in the transition period of the evolution from apes to humans. In other words, between 7 and 20 years before the apes evolved into humans, traces of humans disappeared from the Earth for 130,000 years. Where was humanity during this time? Boldly assume that during the period of the apes, in order to avoid some catastrophes, some apes somehow reached the inner world of the Earth. After many thousands of years of evolution, they became humans, and finally multiplied civilization. As for how human beings come to the ground from the inner world, this problem also has a corresponding story in the mythology, that is, Jedi Tiantong. According to the Shanhai Jing, in ancient times, there was no distinction between human beings and gods, monsters were rampant, and many races lived together in one place. Later, the Zhuangzhou family cut off all the passages between heaven and earth. Since then, the gods can't mess around, and the monsters can't offend. It can be seen that in ancient times, human beings lived together with monsters in the center of the earth, and then returned to the surface under pressure. Then cut off the passage to prevent the earth core monster from coming out to harm people. Later, I don't know what happened, and the records were lost. Or the former human ancestors were afraid that future generations would open the anti-gravity channel connecting the Earth's core world and release the Earth's core monsters, deliberately concealing this history. As the world goes by, the secret disappears with the passing of the ancestors of mankind. Of course, these are all Han Xiaoqing's idle thoughts. Han Xiaoqing didn't know what the original world was like, but in the Marvel world, God in the Eastern Heaven really existed. But when Han Xiaoqing asked Godzilla if there were humans in the inner world of the Earth, Godzilla's answer is that the inner world was indeed inhabited by humans, and the Titans were regarded as gods, or totems. Han Xiaoqing was a little curious about the existence of underground people in the underground world, so he asked a few words. Godzilla answered one by one. Speaking of the latter, Godzilla also revealed some unknown secrets. In this world, there are indeed some higher races that are above humans, such as the Protoss of Asgard. Heaven and hell also exist. The more Han Xiaoqing heard it, the more frightened he became. The framework of this world is extremely huge, and the Earth looks ordinary, but there are many bigwigs who have come out of the Earth. In front of these real bosses, the Minister of Family Planning Thanos is not even ranked. At the same time, Han Xiaoqing thought of a question: has his own existence been exposed in the eyes of these bosses? What attitude would they have towards themselves as an outsider? Thinking of this, Han Xiaoqing couldn't help looking upwards, perhaps because of psychological effects. He always felt that there were pairs of invisible eyes watching his every move. Think carefully, but after thinking about it, he has not been here for a short time. If these big shots really wanted to trouble him, they would have done it long ago. Since nothing happened now, either he didn't care about his small role, or he hadn't noticed him at all, or he had some scruples and was still waiting and watching. Either way, at least temporarily, it's safe. Instead of thinking about these things that don't know when they will happen, it's better to think more about punching in more cards and getting more rewards. Being strong is the kingly way. This check-in system is good everywhere, but it will not actively prompt you where you can check in. You need to explore by yourself. Godzilla continued to move forward. His speed on land was much slower than that in water. With a body weighing tens of thousands of tons, every step he took was a fatal threat to most lives. Bang bang. The heavy footsteps stepped on the ground, causing some rock crabs on the ground to give way in a hurry. These rock crabs are the smaller monsters of the inner earth. To say that they are small in size as compared to other large monsters. In fact, the length of adult rock crabs is generally 6 to 8 meters, and very few king rock crabs can grow to a height of 20 meters. Put them on the surface of the earth, they are definitely real giants. Rock crabs are large arthropod vertebrates. It is estimated that they have evolved from invertebrates to vertebrates due to the influence of geocentric radiation. In order to avoid the pursuit of natural enemies, they also evolved a carapace as hard as a rock, and 2 powerful crab claws, which can easily dig out the rocks on the surface and dig out caves for hiding. In addition, their shells have also evolved into the appearance of surface rocks. If you don't look closely, you may think they are a pile of rocks. These rock crabs are omnivorous creatures with all the characteristics of crabs. Their 8 legs can not only walk sideways, but also quickly change directions while moving at high speed. Usually rock crabs feed on plants, but sometimes they also eat dead large monsters, or prey on some small monsters. When those giant beasts die, these rock crabs will come to them like vultures, and then divide and eat the corpses of the giant beasts as quickly as possible. In general, these rock crabs are plentiful and have a carapace and camouflage. But for large predators in the inner earth, it is still food. For example, the 3 salamandragons in front of them basically took a bite of a rock crab, which was crunchy. Salamanosaurus, also known as a 4-legged lizard, is very similar to Godzilla in its skin texture and facial structure, and is a distant relative of Godzilla. But compared to Godzilla, there is a huge difference in size and intelligence. The largest of the 3 Salamanosaurus is only over 40 meters long, which is already considered a colossus, but in front of Godzilla, it is a group of brothers. Salamansaurus usually crawled on all 4s, fed on rock crabs, and had sharp teeth and a strong bite. Although they don't know atomic breath and are far inferior to Godzilla in strength, they have a large number of races, and they are distant relatives of Godzilla. With some care, ordinary titan beasts will not easily provoke them. Seeing Salomon Long eating the rock crab with relish, Han Xiaoqing felt a little hungry. Immediately, he aimed at a rock crab that was nearly 6 meters tall and 10 meters long. I saw Han Xiaoqing jumping off Godzilla, swinging his halberd, knocking off the rock crab's right pincer with one blow. Then he picked up the big pliers thicker than his waist and ran, jumping back on Godzilla's body in 2s and 3s. The rock crab was so angry that it jumped, but because of the Salamanlong chasing after it, it could only run for its life. Hanging the crab claws on Godzilla's dorsal fin, Han Xiaoqing was not in a hurry to eat them, and planned to roast them over a fire after arriving at the ancestral land of the King Kong clan. Godzilla took some effort to climb to the top of the mountain. This is the closest place to the upper and lower edges of the inner world. At this position, gravity is almost zero. Standing here is like being in space, and you can float up with just one step. The two peaks are about 500 meters apart, and you can see a huge mountain that looks like a palm. There are many ores with purple light floating in the air, which seem to contain mysterious power. As soon as Godzilla jumped up, he took off, and in midair, Han Xiaoqing, who had quick eyes and quick hands, took a piece of earth core ore, and then jumped from the lower edge to the upper edge with Godzilla. Passing through the gravity balance zone, affected by the gravity on the upper edge of the Earth's center, the gravity begins to reverse, just like the sky and the Earth hang upside down. After reaching the upper edge, looking at the lower edge seems to be on the upper edge. This feeling will give people a sense of direction contrast for a period of time. Han Xiaoqing adjusted the contrast almost instantly, and after a while, Godzilla came to a huge temple. I don't know if the temple was built by the King Kong clan or was built by the underground people. The hole is extremely huge. The stone gate nearly 300 meters high comes into view. Standing on the shoulder of Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing can see a huge one on the gate. Bloody handprints. It should be traces left by one of King Kong's ancestors. Right here, coming to the ancestral land of the King Kong clan, Godzilla has mixed feelings. I'll try first. Looking at the heavy stone gate, Han Xiaoqing jumped off Godzilla's shoulder with a trident on his shoulders. The height of nearly 100 meters did not constitute any harm to Han Xiaoqing today. After landing, Han Xiaoqing stuck the trident on the ground and tried to push the stone gate. The stone gate is thick, estimated to be tens of thousands of tons, and Han Xiaoqing mustered all his strength to push open a gap that allows people to pass through. Godzilla said, "Let me do it." After saying that, Godzilla stretched out his thick front paws, and pushed the two doors open without much effort. The difference in strength was clear at a glance. The long-abandoned temple was opened again, and there was a huge empty space inside. Standing in front of the door, Han Xiaoqing felt as if he had come to the kingdom of giants, and he looked so small. The temple occupies a large area, almost hollowing out more than half of the mountain peak. Even if the huge Godzilla enters it, it will not feel crowded. Hey, these monkeys are also good at building homes. I'll sleep for a while. What's the matter? I'll talk about it when I wake up. Hearing Godzilla's words, Han Xiaoqing was a little speechless. Godzilla sleeps. As long as there is no external interference, it will start at least 100 years ago, and it may sleep for thousands of years. When you wake up, big brother, most people don't know how many times you have been reincarnated. I thought so, but Han Xiaoqing didn't intend to disturb Godzilla's sleep. The big brother Godzilla is still good, and he has already taken good care of his brother, so we can't let the other party have to listen to his arrangements for everything. That is not called a brother, but a slave. Mutual respect is the minimum criterion of friendship. Han Xiaoqing pulled out the trident and took off the crab claws from Godzilla's dorsal fin. Brother, sleep in peace, I'll take a stroll by myself. Godzilla groaned softly, stepped into the temple, found a flat ground at random, and fell asleep sooner than a pig. It is estimated that someone who set off firecrackers on his head may not be able to wake him up. Great sleep quality. With a little emotion, Han Xiaoqing looked at the temple. There are obvious traces of artificial processing here. Directly in front of the gate is a huge stone chair erected in the center of the hall, surrounded by many huge stone pillars. These stone pillars are very flat, each with a diameter of no less than 30 meters, and there is a conveyor belt paved with purple geocentric energy ore in the center, leading from the ground to the top, which should be the so-called Titan technology. As for the specific use, unknown. There are also many purple energy ores in the surrounding mountains. Han Xiaoqing guessed that these mines should contain some kind of radioactive substance. However, it is much softer than nuclear radiation and will not cause much harm to the human body. Most of the titanic beasts feed on radiant energy, and King Kong's wisdom is no less than that of humans. There is a certain reason for them to build this place into their ancestral land. Godzilla chose to sleep here also because it is convenient to absorb energy. It has to be said that Godzilla is the big player in the lying flat world. You don't have to worry about housing and eating, and you can upgrade it while sleeping. This is really enviable. Boom. The sky is changing, and thunder is bursting. The mountain peak is only a few hundred meters away from the atmosphere. Above the stone chair in the temple hall, there is a panoramic skylight. The lightning flashing in the sky is constantly changing colors on the stone chair due to the refraction of the clouds, with special lighting effects. Walking down the 10-meter-long ladder, there is a huge platform below, and part of it is sunken, revealing a 7-8-meter-wide pit. There is hot gas and red light coming out of the hole, and it seems that there is lava below. Walking on it, but there is no feeling of hot feet. There are still many bones that have turned into fossils on the platform. Judging from some relatively well-preserved bones, there are King Kong and skeleton lizards. Logically speaking, the skeleton lizard should not be able to defeat Jin Gangang. Perhaps in ancient times, the King Kong clan fought against the Godzilla clan. After the war, their strength was greatly lost, and they were taken advantage of by the skeleton lizard clan. A battle axe made from Godzilla's dorsal fin rests on the skull of a giant skeletal lizard fossil. This battle axe was nearly 40 meters long, and the handle was polished from the leg bones of an unknown titan, which contained the special refining technology of the King Kong family. The tomahawk was too big. Although Han Xiaoqing could lift it, it was inconvenient to use and carry. With the trident, he certainly wouldn't be interested in this tomahawk. But it can be used by Godzilla. He remembered that the battle axe could become indestructible by infusing it with atomic breath. In the movie Godzilla vs. King Kong fights the mechanical Godzilla with a tomahawk at the beginning, and the output is exactly similar to scraping. But after Godzilla enchanted the battle axe with atomic breath, King Kong swung the battle axe and easily dismantled mechanical Godzilla into 8 pieces, showing the gap between whiteboard equipment and enchanted equipment. Although Godzilla is not a primate, his intelligence is higher than that of humans, and his claws can also hold the handle of a tomahawk, but his flexibility is not as good as that of King Kong. If Godzilla had this legendary weapon, his combat power could at least be greatly improved. Turning to look at the sleeping Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing shook his head. Let's talk about it later. Holding a halberd in one hand and the claws of a rock crab in the other, he came to the stone chair in the center of the hall. When Han Xiaoqing bent his legs and jumped onto a stone chair tens of meters high, the check-in system finally responded. Ding! The host is currently located in the temple of the King Kong family in the Earth core world, and meets the check-in requirements. Do you want to check in? Punch the card. Punching in, counting down for 10 seconds, 10, 9, 3, 2, 1, punching in successfully. Congratulations to the host for getting the gravity control of King Wanli. Gravity control. Gravity can be applied to any object, and can form a gravity stand, control universal gravitation, and at the same time allow itself to generate extraordinary physical strength and endurance. Do you want to receive it? Seeing this, Han Xiaoqing's heart skipped a beat. Controlling gravity is a good thing. The 4 basic forces of the universe are divided into strong nuclear force, electromagnetic force, weak nuclear force, and universal gravitation. Gravity ranks at the end, but it doesn't hinder its strength. Although it is not as powerful as Magneto's electromagnetic force, it is already a rare superpower for Han Xiaoqing today. Han Xiaoqing recalled the relevant plot of King Wanli. Wanli Wong is the supervillain of Marvel, whose real name is Franklin Hall. He is an excellent physicist. Because of an experimental accident, gravitational particles merged with his body, giving him the ability to control gravity. After that, Franklin Hall called himself the king of all forces, and he was regarded as a strong enemy of the Avengers. Gravity has many uses, not only to change the weight of matter, but also to create a gravitational field, so that unrelated objects attract each other, and control gravity to fly freely under the condition of breathing. Under the protection of the force field, it can even enter space. In a real fight, it may not be as good as Magneto. Receive. After the words fell, a black light spot melted into Han Xiaoqing's body from the void. The whole process was very fast, and in just one breath, Han Xiaoqing gained the superpower to control gravity. This is a very special feeling, as if the body can be transformed into a black hole, which can center itself and generate a strong gravitational force on the surrounding things, and can also apply invisible gravity to the object, making it overwhelmed, eventually crashes. Because I have just acquired the ability, I am still relatively unfamiliar with the way of using it. It takes time to practice before I can flexibly control gravity and its various attached abilities. Checking in the ancestral temple of the King Kong family is actually quite difficult. If it were ordinary people in the whole world, even if they got the check-in system, they would not know the plot and would not be able to reach the inner world. Even if you go to the inner world, you may not be able to find the temple. Even if you find the temple, you may not be able to enter. Han Xiaoqing's success in punching in the temple also took a lot of luck. At the beginning, he punched in Godzilla's head, allowing him to obtain the physique of the Sea King, and later became brothers with Godzilla, with excellent starting conditions. In addition, as a time traveler, with foresight and many advantages, it can be so smooth. At the same time, possessing the physique and equipment of the Neptune, coupled with the fighting skills of the Death Knell, and the gravity control of the Wanli King, Han Xiaoqing's strength is no different from a big step. Han Xiaoqing, who was in a good mood, used a trident to pick up the crab claws on the throne of the King Kong clan, then found some unknown hay, and lit a fire to cook. Gah, gah, the light of the fire awakened the frightened vultures perched on the top of the mountain temple. The frightened vulture, also known by some as the Insenian falcon, gets its name because of its resemblance to a vulture's head. The horrified vulture is related to the wings of Icarus, but it is even bigger. It is a predator in the air. Its streamlined body looks scary. When it flies down, it makes a strange cry. There are so many of them, they are black and dense, and when they see a living thing, they will come down and take it away, regardless of whether they can digest it or not, just take it away. The length of the frightened vulture is generally about 2 to 3 meters, and a soft tissue wing membrane extends above the hard bone structure. When it is opened, it looks like a solid metal sheet, and the wingspan can reach 4 to 6 meters. Perhaps because they have lived in a dark environment for a long time, their visual nerves have degenerated, but they have evolved a unique heat sensor that allows them to detect the temperature of their prey's blood in the night sky. The slender bones initiate echolocation by emitting a series of taps or low whining sounds. After discovering Han Xiaoqing, they launched an attack in a swarm. As for Godzilla, who was generally sleeping soundly, they didn't pay attention to it. They might be afraid of Godzilla's breath, and they might find it too much. Take me for a soft persimmon. Looking at the screaming frightened vultures, Han Xiaoqing used the gravity control he had just acquired. Suddenly turning on the gravity force, the gravity within 50 meters around suddenly increased 10 times. The sudden gravity caused the frightened vultures to lose control and fall to the ground like dumplings. Han Xiaoqing has a position to protect and is not affected by gravity. He only needs to avoid the falling frightened vulture. In a battle, Han Xiaoqing didn't even use a trident, so he was very calm. In the blink of an eye, 3 months have passed. During this time, Godzilla has been sleeping. After Han Xiaoqing solved some of the frightened vultures, he left the temple and began to explore the Earth's inner world. As for whether the remaining frightened vultures will hurt Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing is not worried at all. Just these stupid birds, it takes a lot of effort to scrape Godzilla. During the 3 months in the Earth's core world, Han Xiaoqing has gradually mastered several abilities obtained by clocking in. His strength has steadily improved, and he has gained a lot of experience in the use of gravity and the trident. It can fly freely by using the gravitational position, apply 10 times the pressure on the set target, or operate against gravity, and can also launch energy bombs through the trident, create lightning, and control the water flow more skillfully. Even in the center of the Earth where monsters are rampant, Han Xiaoqing can dominate one side and let the beasts flee. If Han Xiaoqing is allowed to fight Namor again, he is confident that he can defeat Namor in a short time. This is the power of hanging force. The southern mountainous area of the Earth's core. Roar! The tiger howled in the forest, the dense jungle, and the two skeleton lizards fled in a hurry. Behind them is a holy tiger king with a body length of more than 30 meters. The appearance of the holy tiger king is somewhat similar to the legendary white tiger, with a huge body, most of its fur is white, with some black stripes, and the most special thing is that it has a pair of white jade antlers on its head. The holy tiger is a monster that protects one side of the camp. Although it is not a titan, it should not be underestimated. They are the most elegant creatures in the underground world. They like to hide in the depths of the jungle. Their skin is covered with zigzag leaf-shaped hairs, which shine brightly under the wind blowing from the mountains, and are extremely gorgeous. Ordinary creatures experience a number of very physiological phenomena when viewing a tiger up close, including dizziness, ecstasy, and hearing the tiger's heartbeat as if right next to their ears. In the movies of the Monster Universe series, there is also a holy tiger on Skull Island. The local primitive tribes are in awe of the holy tiger and named it, His Royal Highness in the Wind. One is that the holy tiger runs as fast as the wind. The second is because of its beautiful appearance. People, they are all appearance associations. The skeleton lizard pursued by the holy tiger king is a destroyer among monsters, ferocious and bloodthirsty, and often hunts and kills other monsters. Although the holy tigers will also prey on monsters, it is for survival. Under normal circumstances, they will not kill indiscriminately. Skeleton lizards are different. They have no restraint. Even if they are full, they will hunt and kill other creatures. They are greedy and evil, fierce and brutal, and especially depraved. The height ranges from 4 meters to 36 meters, and the length varies from 10 meters to 60 meters. It has a snake-shaped tail, 2 thick lower limbs, a skull face, and an amazing bite force. Perhaps because the radiant energy of the Earth's inner world is relatively sufficient, the skeleton lizards here are generally larger than those on Skull Island. In King Kong, Skull Island, the skeleton lizard is King Kong's old enemy and the strongest opponent of Pretty Boy. In fact, these two skeleton lizards were not powerless against the holy tiger king. The reason why he fled in embarrassment was because of Han Shaoqing flying in midair. At this time, Han Shaoqing, because he hadn't shaved for 3 months, had grown a lot of stubble, his hair had grown a little, and he was eating and sleeping in the open. He looked a bit like a primitive person. He was holding a trident, wearing a golden battle suit, and fixed his eyes on the two skeleton lizards below, with the tip of the trident pointing to one of them. Whoosh! A golden light flashed from the tip of the trident, and an energy bullet shot out, hitting the skull lizard's neck precisely, blasting a bowl-sized blood hole in it. This blow broke the spine and throat of the skeleton lizard, killing it directly. During this period of time, Han Shaoqing wandered away from the inner world of the Earth, and also punched cards in other places several times. Among them, the best reward is a universe ring. The Chenkin ring contains a square space with a length, width and height of 10 meters. The space is not too big, and it is no problem to store some personal belongings. Other things are dispensable items of life, not worth mentioning. As for why Han Shaoqing and the Holy Tiger King hunted down the skeleton lizard, we have to start from a week ago. A week ago. At that time, Han Shaoqing had just arrived in the southern mountainous area and saw a cute little tiger in the forest. As a cat lover, Han Shaoqing couldn't help wanting to masturbate. As a result, he was illegally stroking the cat, and was bumped into by the little tiger's mother, the Holy Tiger King. The scene was once awkward. Han Shaoqing's telepathy is only effective for marine life, and has no effect on terrestrial monsters in the Earth's core world. Even if they could communicate, the tigress might not believe Han Shaoqing when he said that he just wanted to pet the cat. The Holy Tiger King is not a ferocious monster that is easy to kill, but it is a monster after all, and a mother is strong, let alone a tigress. So a fight was inevitable. Unsurprisingly, the Holy Tiger King was easily defeated by the powerful Han Shaoqing. Fortunately, Han Shaoqing was not Wusong, and he didn't beat the Holy Tiger King to death, but just patted the little tiger's furry head. There's no way, seeing this kind of furry cutie, Han Shaoqing couldn't control his hands. Not to mention, it feels pretty good. Due to Han Shaoqing's lustful power, the Holy Tiger King dared not speak out. After the addiction, Han Xiaoqing didn't make things difficult for the mother and son, and continued on the road. While looking for a place to check in the geocentric world. While exercising gravity control, not long ago, I reunited with Shenggu mother and son, and found that the other party was besieged by a group of skeleton lizards. Although the Holy Tiger King is fierce, he is no match for the skeleton lizard beast. When Han Xiaoqing arrived, the cute little tiger had been bitten to death by a skeleton lizard, and the Holy Tiger King was also scarred. The natural world is cruel and follows the law of the jungle. If it were other monsters fighting, even if Han Xiaoqing couldn't bear it, he would not intervene. But the skeleton lizards are different. The skeleton lizards are extremely aggressive, murderous, greedy, and ugly. If left unattended, let the skeleton lizard clan grow, not to mention that it would be a disaster for other Earth core creatures. As far as they look, they also affect the overall image of the inner Earth world. So Han Xiaoqing decisively drew his sword to help, swung the trident and stabbed 3 skeleton lizards to death on the spot, saved the Holy Tiger King, and then chased and killed the other skeleton lizards together with the Holy Tiger King. At this time, the Holy Tiger King was furious because of the pain of losing his son, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. With one speed up, he threw down the last skeleton lizard, and frantically fought with the skeleton lizard more than 10 meters high. The skeleton lizard wrapped its powerful tail around the body of the Holy Tiger King, fighting desperately. A tiger and a lizard rolled on the ground, overwhelming many vegetation. The minions of the Holy Tiger King tore the skin of the skeleton lizard. The skeleton lizard howled, opened its mouth wide, and bit the sacred Tiger King's neck. Han Xiaoqing flew in midair, fired an energy bomb from the trident in his hand, and shot it directly into the skull lizard's bloody mouth, almost lifting the skull lizard's sky cover. After being severely injured by this, even the skeleton lizard had a strong vitality and was dying. The Holy Tiger King took the opportunity to break free, frantically biting the skeleton lizard's body, biting off the skeleton lizard's neck and still not giving up, roaring with indescribable anger and sadness. Hey! Seeing this, Han Xiaoqing sighed lightly, didn't say much, saw the skeleton lizard being killed, and flew away. A monster has a monster's way of life, and it's not good for him to interfere too much. Are skeleton lizards evil? In fact, skeleton lizards are not evil. Everything they do is for survival and reproduction. It's just that compared to other creatures, the skeleton lizard's survival mode is too aggressive and will destroy the local ecological balance. In addition, skeleton lizards will hunt and kill humans, so when people see skeleton lizards, they will immediately identify them as evil creatures and then try to eliminate them. Thinking differently, what is the difference between humans and skeleton lizards? The same greediness will also destroy the natural ecological balance. When they are full, they will still hunt and kill creatures that they think are threatening, so as to ensure that their own status will not be threatened. Are humans evil? Evil, at least for most creatures, human beings are absolutely evil. But for humans, everything is taken for granted. Being able to stand at the top of the food chain is the result of the efforts and sacrifices of our ancestors. What's wrong with enjoying the status that human beings have gained through their ability and wisdom? But are humans really at the top of the food chain? Once human beings destroy nature to a certain extent, it will inevitably lead to revenge from nature. And Godzilla, the incarnation of the will of the earth, will make humans feel the wrath of nature. I hope that day won't happen. Back at the temple, Han Xiaoqing looked at the sleeping Godzilla thoughtfully. He has a good relationship with Godzilla, and he doesn't want to stand against Godzilla one day because of the human standpoint. Han Xiaoqing took a look at the temple. There are many battle axes made of Godzilla's dorsal fins. Unfortunately, these battle axes are tens of meters long, and his Chenkin ring can't fit in it. Otherwise, he can bring one. Maybe one can come in handy. Not having a sword to use, and not having a sword are two different things. Han Xiaoqing doesn't want to confront Godzilla, but no one can tell what will happen in the future. After saying goodbye to Godzilla, Han Xiaoqing flew to an anti-gravity passage in the east, preparing to return to the surface world. Humans are social creatures after all, and Han Xiaoqing could not help but feel lonely after staying alone in the inner world for several months. The anti-gravity passage in the east was discovered by Han Xiaoqing when he traveled to the inner world of the Earth. Through the gravitational magnetic field, he found that this channel is very stable. As for where does it lead? After some calculations, Han Xiaoqing can determine that the other end is somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. Standing in front of the passage along the upper edge, Han Xiaoqing looked back at the inner Earth world, and then jumped into the anti-gravity passage without hesitation. In midair, Han Xiaoqing used the gravity stance to wrap his whole body, forming a circular stance barrier, and descended rapidly. Reaching the zero boundary point, passing through a layer of water film, and then turning over by gravity, I feel the speed suddenly increase, shuttling through the channel at an extremely fast speed. As Han Xiaoqing expected, the other end of the anti-gravity channel is also on the bottom of the sea, and with the physique of a Neptune, Han Xiaoqing did not feel any discomfort. After a while, Han Xiaoqing broke through the water, came to the surface of the sea, and saw the long-lost sunshine. Using the sun to determine the orientation, Han Xiaoqing used the gravitational position to fly, heading east all the way. He is now roughly sure that he is in the world of American comics, and many major events happen in the West, but as a Chinese, he still wants to go to China in this world first. Flying at low altitude all the way, Han Xiaoqing's speed was extremely fast, and soon he saw a fishing boat in the distance. Han Xiaoqing did not disturb the people on board, but swam quickly underwater, and soon rushed to a port to log in. Soon Han Xiaoqing determined where he was, which was Chunkin Bay in Shangjang. Before 1974, it was the darkest era in Hong Kong's history. In this era, Shangjang was still in the colonial period. Although it was more prosperous than the mainland, the order was chaotic and there were many gangs, chasing each other every day. Under the control of the inaction of the colonists, the police and gangsters colluded and collectively corrupted. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Here, as long as you are courageous and capable, you can quickly rise up and make a fortune. Getting rich overnight is not a dream. But it is also possible that the money died on the street before it was warmed up, or was thrown into the sea to feed the fish. Han Xiaoqing strolled across the beach. Neptune's trident and the golden battle suit were too conspicuous, and Han Xiaoqing had already taken them into the Chenkin ring. At this time, he was not wearing a shirt. He had the Chenkin ring on his hand, and his lower body was a pair of wet trousers. Through the water control ability, the moisture on the pants will be stripped off in the next moment. Some messy hair, coupled with embarrassing stubble, combined with a strong figure and handsome face, made Han Xiaoqing look a little melancholy. Not paying attention to the eyes of passers-by, Han Xiaoqing found a seat and sat down with his hands on his chin, like a thinking Dewey, thinking about how to integrate into the world next. Now Han Xiaoqing is not penniless, and there are many gold, silver and jewels in the Chenkin ring. There are countless shipwrecks in the ocean, and there are many valuables among them. For ordinary people, salvage is not suitable, but for Han Xiaoqing, the little white dragon in the waves, it is easy to get. When Han Xiaoqing was in the sea before, he saw several sunken ships and took 2 boxes of jewelry. Now he only needs to find a place to sell them in exchange for a large amount of wealth. Brother, you are from the mainland. Just as Han Xiaoqing was thinking, a somewhat familiar voice came from behind him. In fact, Han Xiaoqing had already heard a few footsteps approaching, but he didn't pay attention at first. Looking back, Han Xiaoqing froze for a moment. No wonder the voice is familiar, isn't this Master Yi? But a closer look reveals something different. The person in front of him looks exactly the same as Yi Wen, who is about to hit 10 people, but his temperament is completely different. He looks like a member of the society, with messy hair and cheap clothes. He is accompanied by a few fierce-looking men, full of social atmosphere. Brother, don't worry, my name is Wu Shihao. I'm from Chaozhou. I'm also from the mainland. Judging by my brother's appearance, he should have just arrived in Shangjang. We're all mainlanders. If you have any difficulties, feel free to tell me. Wu Shihao looked at Han Xiaoqing with a kind face, and his tone was bold and generous, giving him a very bold feeling. Wu Shihao, looking at the person in front of him, Han Xiaoqing came back to his senses, and thought, there are still characters in Hong Kong movies, so there will be plots about Young and Dangerous in the future, right? Wu Shihao is a character in Chasing the Dragon. In the 1960s, the Shangjang River under British colonialism was a mixed bag. The impoverished young man Wu Shihao smuggled to Shangjang, determined to fight for his life with the heart of life and death, wealth and wealth. In the plot of Chasing the Dragon, Ah Hao took a few brothers, started from the bottom of the Kowloon walled city and licked blood all the way, climbed to the position of drug overlord in Shangjang, and controlled the top 10 gangsters in Hong Kong with one hand, because a leg was broken during the period people in the rivers and lakes called Lame Ho. The other protagonist is Lei Luo, who climbed step by step from an ordinary inspector to the high position of chief inspector of the Chinese, commanding 30,000 policemen in Hong Kong, and grasping the unspoken rules of public security in Hong Kong. In order to monopolize the three major economic industries of Hong Kong, pornography, gambling, and drugs, Lai Hao and Lei Luo sworn brothers. The two of them cover the sky with one black and one white hands. Seeing Wu Shihao, Han Xiaoqing felt that the world was really chaotic. But finally seeing a familiar face, I couldn't help but feel a sense of intimacy. In the play, Wu Shihao is righteous, but he is not a good person, he can be regarded as a hero. Ambitious, courageous, and resourceful. In the end, he embarked on the road of crime, which can only be said to be forced by the situation. In this era, there are not many choices. Quickly recalling the plot of Chasing the Dragon, Han Xiaoqing stood up and said with a smile, "Brother is a cheerful person. My name is Han Xiaoqing, you can also call me Xiaoqing. My ancestral home is Sichuan. To be honest, I came to Shangjang this time to work hard. After a career, I can see that you, Ahao, are also unwilling to be lonely. Are you interested in doing a big career with me?" Hearing this, Wu Shihao looked at Han Xiaoqing in astonishment. He came over to talk to him just now, but he actually felt that this person was not simple. From the figure of the other party, Wu Shihao judged that the other party was likely to be a practicing family, and he came here to make friends with the idea of having multiple friends and multiple paths. Unexpectedly, the other party would pull him into the group as soon as he opened his mouth. Wu Shihao's mind was more active, he just smiled, but the brothers next to him got angry. Dewey is Wu Shihao's subordinate, he speaks morality and spirit, and is also a good brother of Lai Hao. As Wu Shihao's right-hand man, Dewey will always go forward bravely when the eldest brother gives an order, and will never back down. He has served Wu Shihao alone in his life, and upon hearing Han Xiaoqing's words, he stepped forward and shouted, "Who are you? Let brother Hao be with you. Are you qualified?" Shui is Dewey's younger brother, relatively thin and thin, with his arms around his shoulders. He took a look at Han Xiaoqing. "Boy, what is your background? You are so arrogant, report it to the court." Han Xiaoqing looked at Wu Shihao from the beginning to the end, and asked, "How do you think? Follow me, I can't guarantee anything else, there is plenty of money. You don't need to pay taxes to brag, you are so poor now that you only have a pair of pants left, and you don't even have a pair of shoes, you." Dewey wanted to say something else, but Wu Shihao stopped him with a wave of his hand. He looked at Han Xiaoqing apologetically, and smiled apologetically. "My brother has a bad temper. Don't mind me, I wonder if there is any good way to take care of him." Wu Shihao was not offended by Han Xiaoqing's crazy words, but rather polite. It's not easy for mainlanders to come to Shangjang to make a living. They and their brothers huddled together to keep warm, and now they can barely make ends meet. Wu Shihao has ambitions, and he is not willing to do nothing all the time. He thinks he has some discernment. Although Han Xiaoqing in front of him looks downcast, his mental outlook reveals a strong self-confidence. This kind of arrogance is only seen in those black and white bosses. The second is the figure. In this era, many people can't even eat enough to eat, and they are so hungry that they are yellow and thin. However, Han Xiaoqing has a burly physique, with muscles full of explosive power, which makes people know that he is strong and powerful. So Wu Shihao thought of being polite. He is not a powerful lame man now, but just a stowaway at the bottom of Shangjang. If he has a good connection, he can make a fortune. He doesn't mind taking his brother to gamble. Han Xiaoqing can probably guess the thoughts of Wu Shihao and the others. In front of several people, he unabashedly took out a pearl the size of a longan from the Chenkin ring. "I need a few people to help me do things and hang out with me. This pearl is yours. It is better to give money than to talk about ideals." Seeing the pearl the size of a longan, Wu Shihao's and the others' breaths were a little short. Even if they didn't have much knowledge, they knew that this pearl was definitely worth a lot. Dewey, Shui and Yaki looked at the pearl in Han Xiaoqing's hand, with greed and eagerness in their eyes. As for the Chenkin ring, they didn't know it was a treasure, they just thought it was a pearl that Han Xiaoqing took out by tricks. Wu Shihao gave the three of them a warning look without any trace, and they put away their strange thoughts. The gazes of Dewey and the others could not be hidden from Han Xiaoqing, but he didn't care. As the saying goes, people with high skills are bold. Han Xiaoqing can't say that he is invincible, but facing Wu Shihao and Dewey, he is definitely crushing the game, so naturally there is no need to worry about the other party's blackmail. Shui rolled his eyes, looked at the pearl in Han Xiaoqing's hand, and exaggerated, "Wow, such a big pearl must be very valuable, Brother Hao, now we are rich." "Yes, Brother Hao, we went out to meet a nobleman today." As soon as he saw the dry goods and Wu Shihao's warning, Dewey also changed his face. Wu Shihao was also moved, but he was not the kind of person who didn't know what to do, and he was relatively cautious. He looked at Han Xiaoqing and said, "I want to ask my brother first if he is willing." "Of course, I never try to force others to do what they want," Han Xiaoqing said. Wu Shihao heard the words, looked at Dewey, Shui and Yaki. "What do you think?" Dewey said, "Brother Hao, we all listen to you." Shui then said, "Brother Hao, we came to Shangjiang to work hard with you, brothers with one heart, what you say, we will do, we believe in you." "Ababa." Yachi faltered twice and nodded heavily. Wu Shihao was moved, his brothers trusted him so much, of course he wanted to find a good future for them. The Han Xiaoqing in front of him is majestic, and he is a valuable pearl when he comes out of the mountain. No matter how bad he is with the other party, he can't be worse than they are now. Thinking of this, Wu Shihao yelled at Han Xiaoqing, "Brother Qing, from now on the brothers will mess with you." Since he wants to hang out with Han Xiaoqing, he naturally has to recognize Han Xiaoqing as his eldest brother. Dewey, "Brother Qing." Shui, "Brother Qing." Dumb 7, Ababa. The three of Dewey followed suit, but the dumb 7 couldn't speak, so they couldn't understand what he was saying. Wu Shihao was afraid that Han Xiaoqing might misunderstand, so he explained, "Brother Qing, my brother is called Dumb 7. He had a serious illness when he was a child and couldn't speak. Please forgive me." "No problem." Han Xiaoqing nodded. "Let's go and exchange some money first, and then change your outfit." Han Xiaoqing is now shirtless. Although he is not afraid of being seen, it is always bad to be naked all the time. Wu Shihao nodded and said, "I listen to Brother Qing. People are poor and short-sighted, now Wu Shihao only wants to make money, led his brothers to make a fortune, and then bring his wife and children to Shangjiang to enjoy the blessings." He had a hunch that it must be dangerous to work with Han Xiaoqing and Han Xiaoqing. But seeking wealth, he always remembered what his father said before he died. Life and death are fate, wealth is in the sky. Now that there is an opportunity, even if there is danger, it is worth taking a chance. Han Xiaoqing patted Wu Shihao on the shoulder, and handed the pearl into Wu Shihao's hands. "It's easy to say, we will be my brothers from now on, I guarantee that you will not regret today's decision." He didn't intend to be a lone hero. When he first arrived in Shangjiang, some people worked for him, so he could relax. Now that all countries are in the development period, most of the superheroes in the later stage have not yet been born, and the places where they can check in are limited. Han Xiaoqing intends to set a small goal first, to establish a piece of land of his own in Shangjiang, and then develop steadily and intervene at an appropriate time. In modern society, money is indispensable. Under Wu Shihao's leadership, Han Xiaoqing came to a pawn shop in Simsha Sui. Wu Shihao handed the pearl to the owner of the pawn shop. "Well, good stuff, I'll pay 20,000. 20,000. Upon hearing the quotation, Wu Shihao couldn't help but exclaim. The owner of the pawn shop glanced at Han Xiaoqing and the others. "This is the list price, there can be no more." Han Xiaoqing doesn't know much about the current market, and now Han Xiaoqing has no interest in money, so he nodded casually, "Deal." The owner of the pawn shop was overjoyed when he heard the words. This top-quality pearl, regardless of its appearance, color, or roundness, is the top-quality pearl. The market price can be sold for at least 80,000 yuan. If he had known that the other party would not counter-offer, he should have reported 10,000. After getting the money, Han Xiaoqing handed it over to Wu Shihao. "Take the flowers, if you don't have enough, come to me again." "Thank you, Brother Qing." With Han Xiaoqing's confirmation, Wu Shihao accepted the money, and at the same time made sure that he was right. 20,000 Hong Kong dollars was a huge sum of money this year, and Han Xiaoqing gave it to them without blinking an eye. With such a big spender, he couldn't find a second one in Shanghai. 20,000 Hong Kong dollars is already a huge sum of money for Wu Shihao and others. We must know that in this era, working hard for a month is only 200 or 300 Hong Kong dollars. After paying the rent, water and electricity, and deducting living expenses, there are not a few yuan left. The first time they came into contact with a huge sum of 20,000 yuan, Wu Shihao and the others were a little trembling with excitement. With this money, their brothers can build a big house in their hometown, and the three brothers without wives can ask for a wife. Han Xiaoqing didn't laugh at the few people, and reached out to take out a well-preserved porcelain from the bag Chenkin ring and put it on the counter. Boss, pom-pom eye. The owner of the pawn shop watched it several times, put down the porcelain carefully, and said excitedly, "This should be official kiln porcelain from the Song dynasty. My brother is a straightforward person, and I don't play tricks with you. If you are willing to die, I will sell it to you. 300,000 Hong Kong dollars. When Wu Shihao and the others heard this, their breathing became short of breath. Han Xiaoqing's face was calm, and he glanced at the owner of the pawn shop, as if there was invisible oppression. The owner of the pawn shop felt as if he was being targeted by a wild beast, couldn't help but swallowed a mouthful of saliva, wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, and stretched out 5 fingers nervously. 500,000, this is the highest price I can pay. Price. Make a deal. Han Xiaoqing nodded, and the owner of the pawn shop went to the bank to take out a box of 500 Hong Kong dollars. In the 1960s, the largest issuance of Hong Kong dollars was 1,000 yuan, but the significance of commemoration was greater than the significance of use. Most people's monthly salary was only 200 to 300 yuan, and they had never seen even 500 Hong Kong dollars. After clearing the money and goods, Han Xiaoqing took the cash box and came to the commercial area of Sim Sha Sui with the four brothers Wu Shihao. Sim Sha Sui is one of the most prosperous areas in Hong Kong. After coming here, the four Wu Shihao brothers were more excited than the other. With money in their pockets, they were light, as if they were dreaming. Han Xiaoqing took out 10,000 yuan from his pocket and handed it to Wu Shihao. "Ah Hao, the previous 20,000 yuan was for your settlement expenses, and this 10,000 yuan was for your four brothers. Each of you bought a few suits and messed with me. Lost face. Thank you, Brother Cheng." In the blink of an eye, they got another 10,000 yuan, and Wu Shihao's four brothers didn't know what to say. The five head to a high-end clothing store. But before entering the door, he was stopped by the waitress who opened the door. "Sorry sir, we are a high-end clothing store here, and those with disheveled clothes are not allowed to enter." "How can you be considered neat and tidy?" Han Xiaoqing asked. The waitress saw that Han Xiaoqing was handsome, and the muscles on her body made her blush and heartbeat, but for her own job, she still said seriously, "At least wear a tie." Han Xiaoqing took out a piece of 500 Hong Kong dollars. "Is this money enough to buy a tie?" "Enough, enough, please follow me." Soon, the four brothers Han Xiaoqing and Wu Shihao walked out of the clothing store with a completely new look. In Han Xiaoqing's opinion, these suits are a bit old-fashioned, but they are more popular in this era. After getting along for a while, Wu Shihao found that Han Xiaoqing was easy to get along with, so he let go, and bought a lot of things with the three brothers, and introduced Han Xiaoqing to Shanghai from time to time. Han Xiaoqing only bought 2 sets of clothes for changing and washing, and asked the boss to order a few sets of new styles of clothes for later use. After some fun, full of wine and food, Wu Shihao enthusiastically took Han Xiaoqing back to the Kowloon walled city. Naturally, the standard of living in this era cannot be compared with that of the 21st century. There are tube buildings everywhere, and there are many small stalls on the side of the street. "Ah Hao, you got rich. I just said that Ah Hao is a promising young man. Ah Hao, you've made a fortune. Remember to invite third sister to dinner. Next time, I will take my friend upstairs first, and we will talk later, third sister." Wu Shihao greeted the acquaintances on the street familiarly, and it could be seen that Ah Hao's popularity was very good. Han Xiaoqing looked at this walled city that often appeared in Hong Kong movies, and it was a different feeling to be there. The Kowloon walled city belongs to the three-way zone, with an area of only 2.8 hectares and a population of more than 20,000. It can be said to be one of the most densely populated places in the world so far. Dilapidated corridors, unmanaged stinky sewers, people from all walks of life can be seen in the streets and alleys. White powder, gambling stalls, and chicken stalls bloomed in succession, which was extremely chaotic. It gives the impression of being dirty, messy and poor. However, the rent is the cheapest in Shangjong, so many smuggled people will choose to live here. This is a slum and a gold kiln. Young and dangerous are naturally indispensable in this kind of place where fish and dragons are mixed. Han Xiaoqing followed Wu Shihao into the city, and soon found some unfriendly eyes on him. Wu Shihao carried a cash box and several bags, and explained to the side, in the Kowloon-walled city, the biggest force is the Chaozhou gang. It's not peaceful at night, and people often go missing. In fact, it's not just at night that it's not peaceful all day long. Han Xiaoqing clapped his hands empty-handed, not paying attention to the gazes of the people around him, but listening to Wu Shihao's explanation. He looked at his feet and the top of his head. Garbage is everywhere in the walled city, and there is a smoky atmosphere. Some unqualified people directly break the food-washing water upstairs and downstairs, and noisy noises abound. Turning the corner, I saw a few young and dangerous boys beating and extorting. Han Xiaoqing and Wu Shihao didn't want to cause trouble, but after seeing Wu Shihao's box, the young and dangerous boys on the opposite side exchanged glances and walked over. A good dog doesn't get in the way. Han Xiaoqing didn't want to cause trouble, but it didn't mean he was afraid of trouble. He glanced at a few people and then stopped paying attention. You are very arrogant, you punk, how dare you talk to me like that? The leader is called Sangu, and everyone else calls him Mad Dog, or Brother Dog, who is a small leader of the Chaozhou gang. Now there are several main people in charge of the Chaozhou gang, namely, Hua Zerong, Fat Zai Chao, Dal Chang, and Grizzly Bear. The morning dog in front is Fat Zai Chao's horse boy. He usually collects protection fees in the Kowloon walled city, bullies men and women, and is ruthless. Call him Mad Dog. The morning dog obviously took a fancy to the box in Wu Shihao's hand, kicked away the man who had just been bullied by them, put the baseball bat on his shoulder, and put on a pose that he thought he was chic, and said foolishly, "Leave the box, you guys, you can go." Brother Dog, save face, everyone is from Chaozhou, our own people. Wu Shihao handed the box to Dumb 7, and stepped forward to talk to him. The morning dog cast a glance at Wu Shihao, and slapped Wu Shihao on the cheek with his backhand. Wu Shihao had practiced a little kung fu, and his reaction was quicker. He took a step back to avoid the slap of the morning dog. Feeling ashamed in front of the younger brother, the morning dog was furious. "You dare to hide, I'll let you hide." As he spoke, he swung the baseball bat and hit Wu Shihao on the head. Wu Shihao still wanted to turn the big thing into a small one, and he didn't want to make it big, so he gave in again, but Han Xiaoqing would not be used to this mad dog, but stepped forward to grab the fallen baseball bat with one hand, and looked at the morning dog coldly. "What's your name?" "Sangu, what do you want?" The morning dog was still angry at first, but he pulled the stick and found that he couldn't move even with all his strength. Knowing that he had encountered a hard stubble, he quickly raised his backer. "My elder brother is Fat Boy Chow." Han Xiaoqing said with a smile, "Is it a lost dog? If you dare to touch my brother, I think you don't want your dog's life anymore. Beat him." Dewei, Shui, Yaki and Wu Shihao looked at each other when they heard the words, and immediately stopped hesitating, put down the things in their hands, rushed forward and hit. Now that they decided to follow Han Xiaoqing, they had to listen to Han Xiaoqing's words, not to mention that they were violent people, and they had long disliked mad dogs. If Han Xiaoqing wants to deal with a few young and dangerous boys, it is completely easy. The reason why Wu Shihao and the others are asked to do it is to see their attitude. To be his subordinate, the ability is second, the key is to be obedient. Han Xiaoqing does not want to cultivate a group of rebellious boys. Wu Shihao still has some strength. Among ordinary people, he can be regarded as a relatively capable fighter. He can beat a morning dog one-on-one. Dewei, Shui and Yaki are all from the countryside. After coming to Shangjong, they usually do hard work on the construction site. They have some strength, at least their physical fitness is much stronger than those young and dangerous boys. "You wanna die." The morning dog is indeed a mad dog. After being punched by Wu Shihao a few times, he took out a knife and wanted to stab Wu Shihao to death. Although Wu Shihao is brave, he is a body of flesh and blood after all. When he saw the dog showing his knife, he had to dodge it, hoping to find a chance to kill the dog's knife. The mourning dog swung his knife wildly, and after forcing Shihao to retire, he looked at Han Xiaoqing viciously and stabbed him with a knife. "Brother Qing, be careful." Seeing this, Wu Shihao rushed over without hesitation, trying to block the knife for Han Xiaoqing. Seeing this, Han Xiaoqing's impression of Wu Shihao went up to a new level. He waved Wu Shihao away gently and then kicked the mourning dog. His strength is so great that an elephant can be kicked away with one kick, let alone a human. For desperados like Sangu, Han Xiaoqing still took most of his strength, but even so, it was not Sangu who could resist. Hearing a bang, the mourning dog flew out like a mad dog, with at least 3 broken ribs, flew 7 or 8 meters away, fell into the garbage dump, and howled endlessly. With such an injury, death is inevitable, but even if you can get out of bed in the rest of your life, don't even think about lifting a knife. Dog brother. When the other young and dangerous boys saw that their eldest brother was kicked and disabled by Han Xiaoqing, they were all shocked, and they didn't dare to stay any longer, and hurried away with the mourning dog that was vomiting blood. Wu Shihao and others looked at Han Xiaoqing with a little more awe. De Wei said to Wu Shihao, "Brother Hao, I never thought Brother Qing could beat you." "That's right, and the attack was really ruthless. The mad dog is completely useless this time," Shi Wei said with a serious expression. "Losing a dog is not terrible, but he has Fat Zaichao backing him up. Fat Zaichao will definitely not let it go when he takes over the beam this time. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."